1:10 p.m. and a quorum of the board is present. The State Board of Education meeting of May 8, 2018 is called to order. Our first item of business is public participation. Marilyn, are there individuals who wish to address the board at today's meeting?
There are. I have some public participation forms here, and if you have one, if you could get that to me, that would be most appreciated. I will tell you who is coming to the table to speak to the board, and then I will tell you who is going to be next so that you can prepare. And I also want to alert you that the board is happy to hear whatever you have to say, but they do not, as a matter of their bylaws, engage in a back and forth conversation. So thank you. Our first speaker this morning is Senator Colbeck, and he will be followed by Sherry Wells.
Much, everybody. I think I'll just go and pretend this is my computer here. All right. Thank you guys for the opportunity to talk about the social studies standards, which is what I'd like to zero in on. Many of you know, a few years back, we had an initial proposal for social studies standards. They went through a series of focus groups. I attended those focus groups out in my district. Then I proceeded to go off and do a line-by-line analysis of each one of them. And what I saw at the time had concerned me, and I wrote a letter that I got signed by 17 other legislators saying, here's some concerns that I think need to get addressed in these. And I provided the suggested rewording. And to the credit of this board, when we brought it forward to the board for consideration, and under the leadership of Brian Whiston, and obviously our hearts are heavy. We really appreciate it. He was the one who actually kicked off the opportunity for us to go off and do further investigation on this, and which is a credit to him and his leadership. But that led to a 2-year focus group study that I participated in, and along with a lot of other folks that are sitting in this room right now. And I just want to highlight that this is an example of actually folks working together on some pretty sensitive topics. When you're talking social studies standards, you're getting into race relations, you're getting into gender issues, you're getting into political issues like conservative versus progressive. And as a testament to the people that were on this committee, we had adult conversations on all those topics. And I had 2 stipulations when I started participating in that. I said, whatever we come up with has to be politically neutral and has to be accurate. And I believe that the standards that this body is considering today and for distribution to the broader community actually meets that criteria. And I really appreciate the dialogue and the openness that everybody engaged in on this. It was actually, you know, there were people from some very diverse political and worldviews engaged on this. And the conversations that we had were extremely professional. I think that the standards that resulted from this are going to be ages. There's always more you want to cram into stuff, but ultimately we're only blessed with 24 hours in a day, and not all of that has to be in the classroom. So, but I think what we did there was kind of consolidate and focus on a good least common denominator for everybody that everybody could get agreement on, and I think we've got a balanced set of standards that people can be proud of. So I don't know if anybody had any questions in regards to the standards or anything, but
One of our board members did request a point of privilege, and Michelle, if you'd like to ask your question.
Thank you. I haven't looked at it closely, and we are going to get a side-by-side of the current standards and what the changes are.
Yep.
So, and I also want to make sure we have a comment period where people can actually be physically present to answer questions and hear debate. So anyway, so one of the things I noticed, though, is the crossing out of the word democracy and replacing it with republic. And I didn't understand why that was necessary. So it was,
okay. Well, one of the criteria I specified was that we have to be accurate, right? And so I stipulated proof for the fact that we are indeed a constitutional republic as opposed to a democracy. And if you actually look at pure democracy, right now we have a State Board of Ed meeting here. You are elected representatives of the people. You are essentially a republic. I mean, acting in a republican fashion. If we wanted everybody to vote on this, we'd just put it up on Facebook and say, everybody log in and go off and submit your vote. We're not in that mode. It's not a pure democracy. So the actual term republic means, it comes from Latin res publica, which means representative of the public. As a state senator, I'm a representative of the public. And our system of government, and I submitted this at the time of our discussions, I said, listen, Article 4, Section 4 of the U.S. Constitution guarantees a Republican form of government. When we pledge allegiance to the flag, we also pledge to the republic for which it stands. When Ben Franklin came out of the Constitutional Convention, he was asked, what's the form of government you got? And he said, a republic, if you can keep it. And I can go into Federalist Papers, too. And then at the same time, when we had our discussion, because we wanted to be fair and balanced in how we were approaching this, I said, please show me the evidence that says we're a democracy. And the response that I got from the folks who are advocating for that said, well, that's what our textbooks say. I go, really? We need to do a little bit better than that. And ultimately, I think that carried the day to go off and say, guys, we're actually a constitutional republic. We're not simply a republic. We're actually bound by our oaths of office.
Although it is a democratic process to elect the.
It is a definitely very democratic process. And actually, when we were going through the wording on it,
Kind of minced.
we talked specifically, there are democratic processes called elections, right? When we do a ballot initiative, that's a democratic process. But
right.
the overall framework, the overall system, the way it's intended to operate, that is a republic. It was a fun discussion, and it was lively. I mean,
Yeah.
everybody get out your Constitution, and it was one of those discussions, which frankly is what we want to have happen in our classrooms. We want to have that type of discussion. And I'm happy to say I think we've got some standards that are going to prompt that discussion.
To be a democratic republic, right?
Well, I would say it's a constitutional republic, and in that constitutional framework, we've got democratic processes. You're bound. The reason the Constitution prefix is important is because you let me as a representative, but that doesn't mean I can do anything that I want to go off and do. I'm actually bound by the constraints defined in the Constitution.
But the Constitution can be amended.
Yeah, it's Article 5 in the U.S.
yeah.
Constitution, right? And it can be amended, but I'm an old engineer, so we used to have things called change orders. And you could propose a change to it, but that wouldn't necessarily change your design until you actually got that
Have the
approved.
democratic process to do that.
Absolutely. Well, it wasn't too democratic in engineering, but I was like, where are you getting the money for that, Colbeck? I don't have the money. Okay, well, you're not doing it then.
Okay,
So it was,
yeah.
so it wasn't very
Thank
democratic.
you for the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you for your time with us, and thank you for your investment in this whole process.
Well, I want to thank everybody who participated. Literally, there were very, very diverse worldviews, and it was done extremely professionally, and it's a testament to the citizens of Michigan that we had those type of people working on that endeavor. So I'm looking forward to going through the public comment period and see what we come up with at the end, but I'm very proud of all the people that served on that focus group. It was really well done. And hats off to Linda and Jim and Dave Clem and all the guys that participated and ladies that participated in that. The leadership on it was phenomenal. So thank you very much for your time.
Our next speaker is Sherry Wells, followed by Michael Libby.
When I first walked in here this morning, I saw no one at the other end of the table, and it reminded me of the Air Force missing man formation. When I first met Mr. Whiston, he was going to be, just before he took this position, he was going to speak to the Detroit Public School Board that called itself the School Board in Exile, because although they were elected, they were not allowed to function due to the emergency manager. And he started out by appreciating their work with the coalition, and he was stopped, and they explained their view of that coalition, and he listened. And I did get the opportunity to tell him how impressed I was that he listened. He's also expressed a concern about the Benton Harbor School District and its partnership agreement. On Saturday, I was again nominated for candidate for the Green Party of Michigan for the State Board of Education, and so I'm going to proceed with some plans I was working on to have a Benton Harbor Education Town Hall, multi-partisan, because I have other people who are interested as Republicans, Democrats, and us Greens, and I imagine I can get a Libertarian who has some interest in it as well. To talk about the situation. I've also been in contact with a community activist in Benton Harbor who last week was exonerated from a miscarriage of justice by the Benton Harbor justice system. And there are more problems with Benton Harbor than just the school district, but I hope that we the people can take care of them and get the Benton Harbor students getting all the benefits of a good education that we can possibly give all of our students in less than 10 years.
The next speaker is Michael Libby, followed by Rebecca Bush.
My name is Michael Libby. I'm co-coordinator of the Michigan Geographic Alliance, and I teach geography at Central Michigan University. I've been a part of the standards process from the beginning, and would like to comment specifically on some of the big changes that were made, and especially with respect to middle school and about the process standards. I can also address some of the concerns that came up in the morning. The concern between a constitutional republic and a democracy is a significant concern. It's important to me. I hope we achieve consensus that we needed to be more precise about our use of language, and that it's reasonable to say we are a democracy defined as any government which derives its authority from the consent of the governed, and we are also a constitutional republic defined as the structure of the government. So that was, I hope, the compromise we tried to build into the standards. Both Senator Colbeck and Judge Warren are extraordinarily knowledgeable people. It was wonderful working with them. We learned a lot, and we agreed to disagree on some things. With respect to the changes that were made, and especially with respect to using the C3 document as a reference, I read that document. It is not a government document. It was produced by the National Council for the Social Studies. There are some good parts to it. There's some questionable parts to it. Some parts I thought were frankly off the wall. But they did help us focus on the inquiry process and including compelling questions, a question that would lead to a discussion, and supporting questions, a question that leads to evidence. So we did a substantial revision and clarification of our process standards and used that as a lens and incorporated those two things in it. There were also things that we did need to change. We made the standards much more compact. We kept our reading and communication standards, which we thought the national document did not deal with adequately enough. So the process standards you see came from Michigan standards with a couple of inclusions. The other person I need to identify, in addition to the people who've worked on this, is Amy Bloom, who made significant contributions to our process all the way along. And one of the contributions she made early on was to say, you have the process standards at the high school, you need to have them at middle school and at elementary school in an age-appropriate manner. So we've done that. I would encourage you to look at those standards. The secondary standards are on page 85 of your document. Senator Colbeck was good enough to bring some additional people to our process. We worked with a wonderful lawyer who helped us go through those, and I hope you will see in those the things that we can all agree on as processes that our kids should be working on. With respect to the change in the middle school, and this was the big change, this is what teachers are concerned about. We had two tracks, Western Hemisphere, Eastern Hemisphere, and world geography, world history and geography. Teachers and school districts were increasingly going to the world geography, world history and geography. They wanted to have some certainty. The folks in MDE said, we don't like the two-track system. It's going to screw up our assessment stuff. I was the last holdout on that. But we went around to teacher groups, and they consistently said, make the change. And so we made the change, and we hope the standards we present to you are fewer, clearer, and higher, which was our original mandate. Thank you very much.
Rebecca Bush is the next speaker, followed by Roy Silvis.
Thank you for allowing me this time to speak. My name is Rebecca Bush, and I work as the social studies consultant for the Ottawa Area Intermediate School District. I'm here today representing both the Michigan Social Studies Supervisors Association as well as a member of the executive board of the Michigan Council for the Social Studies. Thomas Jefferson once said that an informed citizenry is at the heart of a dynamic democracy. And with regard to the social studies revisions process that we have been involved with over the last 4.5 years, I have to say, having served kind of dual roles in the process, as a consultant who has worked with social studies teachers K-12 for almost 20 years, 4.5 years seems like an eternity to be working on the precise wording that is needed for the construction of such important standards. On the other hand, 4.5 years seems at times to just scratch the surface when we talk about soliciting thoughts, concerns, passions of the teachers in which our organizations represent. Our social studies team, and when I talk about team, I talk about collaborative effort, not just with our content organizations, Dr. Libby, for example, representing Michigan Geographic Alliance, but also our Supervisors Association and the Michigan Council for the Social Studies. We all have unique roles that we play in working with teachers and students. But the one thing that we feel is very dynamic right now are the standards. We are really looking forward to moving forward and implementing those standards in the best ways possible for both our teachers and our students. So I hope that we have that opportunity to do so sooner as opposed to later. Thank you.
Roy Silvis, followed by our final speaker, Charles Cogger.
My name is Roy Silvis, and I'm the coordinator for social studies at the Genesee Intermediate School District. And I'm also a member of the Michigan Social Studies Supervisors Association and a board member of the Michigan Council for Social Studies. Thank you for the opportunity to provide some very brief comments, kind of the 40,000-foot level, as a member of the writing committee from day one when we met over 4 years ago. I fully support the revised standards for social studies. Because of the nature of social studies, you can only approach a consensus on a final draft because of all the issues, some of which you've already heard about. And you'll learn more about those as you dig into the document. The 4-year process has provided significant opportunities for all stakeholders to provide feedback, which was always taken into consideration and often led to extensive, deep conversations and some fine-tuning. The revised content and process standards provide what is necessary for local districts to design a curriculum that fully prepares young people to learn how to think and not what to think, and to be prepared for civic life in our great nation. The civic life one that we talk about is one in which our young people are knowledgeable and equipped to be responsible citizens, not only by voting, that's only a starting point, that's one responsibility, but citizens who actively care about their community, are involved in their community to make it a better place, communicate with leaders, actively stay informed from all points of view on issues that impact their lives, and are equipped to be involved in respectful, substantive conversations. I'd like to clarify that these Michigan standards are written by Michigan educators. that are influenced by representatives from numerous cultural groups. The document that had the most impact on the revised standards was in fact the 2007 standards, because our goal was not to rewrite, but to revise and to make them fewer, clearer, and deeper. This we did in fact accomplish. To address your concern, Mr. McMillan, it's not a Common Core document. This is truly a Michigan document. These were Michigan educators that wrote this document. We referenced MC3 and a lot of other things, but we also referenced a lot of content experts and our own knowledge about social studies and where we think students need to be. That'll come out in the document as you read it. Ms. Pugh, once you have had the opportunity to review the details of the revised standards, I think you're going to find that civil rights is well addressed, but of course your feedback is welcomed as well. And then Ms. Snyder, in regards to your concerns about sex trafficking, you'll notice that can be accomplished in the global issue standards. It's certainly an important topic that needs to be addressed. It needs to be studied. As a member of the writing committee, it would be a pleasure to learn more from you during another time about what we might want to include and what your thoughts are on that. In closing, I believe these are the right standards for right now for students and teachers. And I think as you learn about them and you dig into them, you'll find the same. Thanks for the opportunity to speak.
Our final speaker is Charles Cogger.
Good morning, Michigan education leaders and members of the Department of Education. My name is Lieutenant Colonel Chuck Cogger. I'm the commander of the U.S. Army Recruiting Battalion, Great Lakes. Thank you for allowing me to speak to you on awareness of military education and career opportunities. My condolences on the loss of the great educator, leader, and Superintendent Brian Whiston. Thoughts or prayers are with his family today. Our young Americans across the great state of Michigan deserve the opportunity to make an informed decision about their futures. Currently, about 50% of the youth report having little or no knowledge about military programs, and less than 1% of educators, including counselors, teachers, and administrators, have knowledge of our programs. The challenges we face could impact the future of an all-volunteer force and subsequently our nation's security. The Army offers over 150 career options. STEM careers place soldiers in charge of important missions: computer information technology, intelligence, medicine, civil and mechanical engineering, environmental sciences, and construction. The Army provides leadership opportunities that far outpace its counterparts. 99% of Army occupations have civilian-related credentials. Education is the foundation of the U.S. military. The Army provides the ability of soldiers to gain a world-class education while serving and after they depart service. Army opportunities equals career readiness plus education. Some examples are the following. The Army alone spent $162 million on tuition assistance last fiscal year 17, so soldiers could earn degrees. Nearly 7,000 soldiers completed degrees while serving. The U.S. Army Reserve Officer Training Corps offers approximately $300 million in scholarships each year for students at about 1,000 universities ranging from Harvard and Princeton to Berkeley and Ohio State. The U.S. is the largest single provider of college scholarships in the nation. We have over 109 education centers worldwide at military institutions across the nation and the world. The Army invested over $890,000 in veterans benefits, with $1.2 million spent on veteran education. Students using the post-9/11 GI Bill are more likely to graduate, have a higher GPA, and earn academically rigorous degrees. For the most part, educators across the state are supportive of the military and of the veterans. However, they lack the knowledge and do not understand what the military service entails or why it may be a great path for their students. House Bill 4181, recently signed in November, is a great step in the right direction, educating school counselors on those military options, but it's not enough. The Every Student Succeed Act requires government-supported schools to provide the same access as military services as they give post-secondary schools and other prospective employers. We need our educators to welcome our military recruiters into schools. Our service members represent our country and should not have to recruit in the shadows. Access varies greatly from school to school, and the degree of access directly impacts the ability to educate students and administrators, and counselors about the careers that the military that the military careers and education opportunities have to offer. I believe we can improve this through a Military Opportunities Month, where recruiters from all services inform student, teachers, and administrators on the benefits, both education and career opportunities of military service. Similarly, my recruiting battalion conducts an annual education tour for counselors, educators, administrators, and state leaders at one of our many military posts across the United States. At the end of the tour, the participants leave the tour awestruck of what the Army has to offer for education and career opportunities. The benefit of a Military Opportunities Month does this, and I can bring that information to your educators without disrupting their already busy schedules while attending our great tour. Students are told that they can choose the workforce, pursue a college degree, or look for technical education. What the counselors fail to tell the young Americans is that the military can do all three. House Bill 4181 will help with this. All of us in this room are in positions of special trust put in place by people who believe and trust in our ability to make informed decisions and educated decisions that are in the best interest of our state and the military. At its core, the U.S. Army is a training and education institution. I myself am a product of Army education, having not paid 1 red cent of my tuition in over my undergraduate and postgraduate master's degree programs. We cannot meet our mission to protect the nation's freedom without a highly trained, well-educated, expertly skilled force. It would greatly benefit educators, counselors, and administrators on the programs and the career opportunities that the military provides to have this Military Opportunities Month. Thank you for your time. God bless the United States of America, great state of Michigan, United States Army.
I believe that concludes public participation unless someone has a form. Do I have them all? Okay, thank you.
Right. The next item on the Committee of the Whole agenda is the presentation on kindergarten entry observation pilot project. During a previous State Board of Education meeting, board members expressed interest in learning more about the kindergarten entry observation pilot project. We welcome Scott Menzel and Melissa Brooks-Yip to the table to present.
Good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity to spend a little bit of time talking with you about the Michigan Kindergarten Entry Observation Tool. We're here also with heavy hearts. The field has tremendous loss with Brian's passing, and it's a difficult day, and he leaves a big hole. And we appreciate all that he did for the children in Michigan. We're going to break our presentation into 2 parts. I'm going to walk us through a historical journey in terms of Michigan's work on a kindergarten entry assessment. Melissa is going to dive into the pilot project and some of the details of the kindergarten readiness assessment, now known as readiness assessment, now referred to as Michigan Kindergarten Entry Observation Tool. So, in 2009, we started having conversations, and the we would be the Early Childhood Investment Corporation, the Michigan Department of Education, and the MAISA Early Childhood Committee to explore a potential kindergarten entry assessment tool for the state of Michigan. And we brought in primarily 2 different vendors to look at what that might be for us and how we might recommend going forward. We spent a couple of years actually studying this. In 2011, the federal government issued the Race to the Top Early Learning Challenge Grant. Part of that grant focused on states implementing uniform kindergarten readiness assessments. So we used the federal grant, even though we were not awarded a grant immediately, we used that as an opportunity to approach the Michigan legislature to seek supplemental funding to actually implement a kindergarten readiness assessment in the state of Michigan. And in 2011, in a supplemental appropriation, it was a little bit over $12 million. $3.75 million was allocated for the kindergarten entry assessment pilot project. Another $9 million was allocated for the tiered quality the Great Start Quality to Improvement rating system. So we were able to get supplemental funding to run a pilot project. It took us a few years in terms of how this unfolded, and I think the history is important here.
In 2013, Michigan submitted and actually was awarded a Race to the Top Early Learning Challenge grant of $51.7 million. I'm quite confident that you're familiar with that. We were a Phase 3 grant recipient. But I did include pages 204 through 208 in the handout because you'll see in there that the state made a commitment to implement a uniform kindergarten readiness assessment as a part of our grant application. In 2011 and 12, there was an RFP process conducted by the Bureau of Accountability and Assessment. I think the acronyms change frequently, but at the time, that's what it was called. And we spent a year looking at potential vendors, and then there was an RFP process. And so in 2012-13, the department selected Teaching Strategies Gold as the tool that we would pilot here in the state of Michigan. The pilot in the fall of 2013 included approximately 3,600 students, a relatively small sample size from across the state, but it was also part of what we expected. We wanted to learn what worked and what didn't work and get feedback from the field, and we heard a lot of feedback from the field on Teaching Strategies Gold. It was too long, it was difficult to administer, there were lots of questions about the process that was used, and so in between 2013 and 2014, revisions were made to Teaching Strategies Gold. The number of questions were reduced. And we went to the field in 2014. The idea there was that we would expand to 20% of the state. But the pilot project and the field test were both voluntary. And as you can see, the number of students assessed in the second year were fewer than the number assessed in the first year. And part of the challenge that we discovered was that there were conversations that were circulating that the department may have to rebid this tool again in 2016. And so when you go to local districts and you ask if they're willing to voluntarily participate in a pilot, and they hear, well, this might not be the tool that the state ultimately settles on, we might switch to something different, it's more difficult to get participation. So I think there was frustration on the part of the intermediate school districts that were working to support MDE and the administration of the field test. And we realized at that time that it may not go forward. In 2015, the state didn't continue with a formal pilot, but there was some money left over, and the department agreed to continue funding TS Gold for those districts who were implementing it and wanted to continue to use it. So the reason why I brought the original KRA application is because in that application, it outlines the Teaching Strategies Gold pilot, but then it also talks about our participation in the Maryland, Ohio Kindergarten Readiness Assessment Tool development. There was an enhanced assessment grant given to Maryland and Ohio. Michigan was a partner state to develop their own kindergarten readiness assessment. So while we were piloting TS Gold, Maryland and Ohio were working on developing a KRA assessment. In our Race to the Top Early Learning Challenge grant application, we actually indicated that it was possible, once that tool was developed and implemented, that Michigan may move and select that tool. So when you see 2016 on the list here, that was when we re-engaged with our partners in Maryland and Ohio. It was sort of happenstance. A number of ISDs were at an Ounce of Prevention conference in Chicago, and we ran into Rolf Grolfenwallner from the Maryland State Department of Education. Rolf had been a presenter in 2009 on kindergarten entry assessments, so we were familiar with him, but I hadn't talked to him for a long time. And he indicated that Michigan would be welcome to participate in the KRA. He shared information about Ohio and Maryland's experience over the 2 years that they had tested the tool, and also offered to provide $20,000 for us from that enhanced assessment grant to support teacher professional development. So coupled with that commitment, we approached Senator Hansen and were able to get $185,000 in the school aid budget to pilot the KRA in a few select areas. In 2017, that was expanded to include school districts in Prosperity's regions 4, 5, and 9. Initially, the expectation was that would be implemented in fall of 2017, but if you remember, the school aid budget last year didn't get approved until sometime mid-June maybe, and might not have been signed till July. There was absolutely no way that we could do professional development for the teachers in those 3 regions. Fortunately, because of the state budget cycle, we had the ability to say that it was, if districts had piloted in 2016, they could continue in 2017, but the expectation was for full implementation in those 3 prosperity regions in the fall of 2018. And that was the $1 million that was appropriated in the last budget cycle. In the current budget proposals, the House maintains the $1 million for prosperity regions 4, 5, and 9. The Senate expands the implementation of the kindergarten entry observation tool to all prosperity regions except for 1 and 10 by the fall of 2019, and with the expectation in our conversations with Senator Hansen that we would move to the statewide implementation by the fall of 2020. You can see at the bottom of the slide, we had 59 classrooms in 22 districts in the 16-17 pilot year. So we want to talk just a little bit about the policy implications. You know that the legislature increased funding for Great Start Readiness by $130 million, bringing the total of investment in at-risk 4-year-old preschool programming to $250 million. When you look at the top 10 and 10 goal, universal pre-K for 3 and 4-year-olds is one particular area of emphasis. Goal 1, strategies 1.1 and 1.2 apply here. And one of the things that we wanted to point out is the quote from the guiding principle: to be successful and becoming a top 10 performing state in 10 years, Michigan must develop a coherent and cohesive strategy for the children and implement that plan with continuity for multiple years. Education reform takes time. We must implement, use evidence and data to correct course, and continue with progress on key goals. So the real driving force behind the implementation of a uniform kindergarten entry assessment is twofold. One is to look backward, to tell us how well programs that serve preschool students are performing in terms of improving their readiness to enter kindergarten prepared to be successful. So not a screener to say they should or shouldn't be in school, but to let us know where they are, and more specifically, how our investment in GSRP is playing out. Are students who have GSRP better prepared for kindergarten than students in poverty, so similarly situated, but who did not participate in a state-funded preschool program? That would be a metric that would tell us that this investment is worthwhile. At the same time, we didn't want to adopt a tool that would only be useful in a backward or rear-view mirror, but we also wanted to look at something that could inform instruction. And finally, the tool needs to be developmentally appropriate and cover the domains of learning, not just academic domains. In 2011, we surveyed the state to see what districts are doing, and you know that school districts administer a variety of kindergarten assessments. Some use DIBELS, some use Brigance, some use other tools. We had a wide variety across the 48 ISDs where we had survey responses. The importance of a uniform assessment is because as we're continuing to make the argument that the investment in early childhood is one of the most critical investments we can make in the state of Michigan to address the inequities of children born in homes in poverty and living in communities with limited resources, this is an area where we can help bring them up to speed so that when they enter kindergarten, they're at or close to the starting line where their other peers already are. So that's the real driving force behind this. Equity is really at the heart of our commitment because we believe that all children, regardless of circumstance of birth, deserve the opportunity to achieve their full potential. And that means moving our resources to where they're needed in order to help ensure that our students have that opportunity. Melissa is going to talk about the specifics of the KRA, and then we'll be happy to answer questions that you may have.
Hey, I'm Melissa. I entered WISD 5.5 years ago as the coordinator of instruction. So in that, I have an existing professional learning network for teachers where I have a large group of kindergarten teachers. So it sort of made sense for me to enter at that point in the pilot since kindergarten teachers will be implementing the KRA in the first weeks of kindergarten, and I get to have a close look at what this means for instruction on their end. As Scott mentioned, it goes both ways. So I wanted to give a little bit of information about what the tool looks like, and then some information from our piloting districts. So the KRA, Kindergarten Readiness Assessment, actually looks at the whole child, knowledge, skills, and behaviors of kindergartners across 4 domains: language and literacy, mathematics, social foundations, physical well-being, and motor development have not been previously assessed, not in the way it is here. And the developmentally appropriate tool is such that this test is largely observational. So it's not paper pencil, it's not computer adaptive. It's based largely on teachers observing students in these 4 areas and valuing their observational data. So the domains help kindergarten teachers gain a better understanding of the whole child, not just language and literacy and mathematics, which Scott mentioned we do have lots of assessments for already, but the social foundations of physical well-being, executive functioning, and the social foundations, the physical well-being, looking at relationships as well, fine motor and gross motor tasks, nutrition, following rules. When Johns Hopkins University developed it, they did look and involve teachers and students. So there's just a short timeline of the KRA development process that it went through. And the design, the design, after going through that process, supports growing knowledge and research about the variability of young children's growth, development, and learning, so making sure it is a developmentally appropriate tool. Provides insight into children's readiness for kindergarten. As Scott mentioned, kids are coming into kindergarten from various backgrounds and experiences, whether they're in preschool or somewhere else. Identifies children's performance across multiple domains and aligns with best practices for assessing young children, hence the observational piece again. Informs prior early learning and development to ensure that children are entering kindergarten ready to learn. And if they're not, then what can we do about that as kindergarten teachers? So the purpose, to support and advance children's early learning and academic achievement. So the data collected, which we're going to get a glimpse into that a little bit more with the pilot data, informs instruction and decision-making that benefits children, assists teachers instructionally, informs families. There's a family piece before and after the assessment as well that teaches families how to support in the 4 domains that are assessed. Advises school leaders in early childhood programs. They can make decisions together and open up communication. Instructs community leaders and policymakers, as Scott mentioned earlier. So the data use. So questions that come up, how are we going to use this data? So we mentioned it goes 2 ways. So it's going back to preschools to inform the preschool programs, but it's also moving forward into kindergarten, who are children when they come to us. Kindergarten teachers don't usually have the benefit of that other teachers do. Their kids come to them and they're brand new. They haven't been in school before. They don't have information like first and second and third and upgrade teachers do. So do our kindergarten students demonstrate readiness, and what does that mean? In which domains do they need support of the 4? How do children from low-income households fare? What about minority children, English learners, children with disabilities, homelessness, foster care, immigrants? So looking at who our children really are. What can we use to address the achievement gap in this data? What are we doing to support families? And what more can we do to support educational equity, as Scott mentioned? So looking at, again, developmental sciences of assessing young children. So it's fully in tune with unique needs of young learners. It's what it takes to close the preparation and achievement gaps before 3rd grade. So as Scott mentioned, we do have lots of other assessments that have been going on with kindergarten and early in the year, like this one. But this one I feel gets closer at looking at what we really do need, the whole child needs. Young children benefit from authentic activities and embedded assessment within their daily routines and lives. And that is a link in there if you'd like to read later, a link to an NPR article.
What is an authentic activity?
Play-based. So an authentic activity, observing them in what they would be doing already. So it's not paper, pencil sat in front of you and asking you to take an assessment, but if the kindergarten classroom is set up in a developmentally appropriate way, the teachers will be able to observe the children in play and learning. We want to assess young children without them knowing they are being assessed, so observational, as I just explained. So one-shot assessment, something that may just look at literacy or math skills and be paper pencil based, tend to be less representative of what young children know and can do in their learning predispositions. So observing young children and why. So I'm going to go just a little bit deeper into observation because this seems to be the piece that's very different for kindergarten teachers. So coming out of early childhood, when I work with preschool teachers, that's the main way they assess students is through observational means. They're very used to collecting observational data and using that as valid data to inform their instruction. But then when I talk with kindergarten teachers, that's not a typical assessment form that they would use. So we do have to talk to kindergarten teachers a lot about the value of observational data and how you give an observational assessment. So each child is unique. Observing them would show why. Gain insights into a child's thinking. So there are observational pieces in all 4 domains, but looking at the 3 of the 4 domains. Looking at the language and literacy, part of that is listening to their language, listening them to them think through processes verbally. You might not get that on the other assessments. See how children are developing and learning. Witness a child's depth of knowledge and understanding if you're watching them interact with each other and with the world around them. Provides documentation, so it validates the observational data, and uses the information to appropriately challenge and support children. Because you know, you've seen what they can do and what they know, you can follow them through the year with that information.
So when you said provide documentation, that's the observer would have to provide documentation on every child on all these different aspects, or how?
Yes, the tool has a rubric, so you know there are items that you're looking for in the 4 domains.
How often do they have to do that per child?
So it's spread out, so it's not just one-on-one doing it all at once. It's spread out over the testing period. So I wouldn't assess one child all in one sitting.
Yeah, but I'm just wondering if you have a class of 18 and how many points you track and how often you have to track. So I'm just thinking.
This
in
is what we
terms of-
heard.
Yeah.
You and I heard at
yeah,
AFT, yeah.
Yeah, so I was just wondering how that was managed and how.
So time-wise, it's about 45 minutes a child spread out over the first 2 months of school. So it's spread out. It is time-consuming because of the observational piece, but also that's where the value comes in. So it's not a quick assessment like lots of the ones we have that give you a little bit of information.
That's at the
So it is-
expense of other things, right? I mean, there's an expense to that. They're doing this instead of doing other instruction, or
other
doing
assessment-
instruction,
Other assessments.
or instruction. They're doing this instead of instruction.
Yeah, they can't do both at the same time.
Right, but it
Isn't
depends.
this during instruction? I mean, if they're.
It should be during
Yeah,
instruction if it's
it should
largely
be during
observational.
instruction, because that's how you're collecting the data. It's focused observation
But if you're
during
pausing
instruction.
and writing, you're
Looking
not
at a computer
instructing.
screen,
So this is what we're hearing from teachers,
Yeah, yeah.
kindergarten teachers,
So how do you do your
that it's a real
assessment?
problem.
Assessment?
Okay, so I'm teaching, and I was a teacher for a long time, and I used to assess as I taught. We're smart people, teachers are smart. We can do more than one thing at one time. But there's different ways of assessing. When I assessed, I didn't use a computer. I used paper and pencil, or my brain, or, different ways, a checklist. Or I would go around and do it just on the spot. There's many ways of assessing.
But it sounds like you're talking a little bit about anecdotal notes. You're taking notes as you watch the children work together. You're using a rubric in determining what items that you're looking for, either social emotional, or if you're listening for their language skills.
Raising their hand, thumbs up. You don't understand, thumbs down. There's many ways.
Right. Including
Depending the
during
age level.
transition time.
Right.
There's lots of transition times, especially in kindergarten, as they switch from activity to activity or go to specials out of the main classroom. But you're right, not all teachers think or know how to do observational assessments in kindergarten. That's a largely preschool activity. So some teachers, it comes naturally. Others, we do need to talk a little bit more about what that looks like. So that is something that is involved in the training and helping teachers to mindfully plan for the observational piece. So it gives them a chance to watch and listen and watch, not comparing children to each other, but looking at them for who they are. So just the facts. It's a chance to see kids thinking and learning in action. Like I mentioned, you don't get that opportunity on other assessments.
Are they entering the data on the computer, an iPad? What's the process?
There are some items that you could enter on an iPad so that it's automatically put into the system. They could take notes and then put it in later. So it's flexible. It's flexible on how you input the information. So here's just a breakdown of the 4 domains and what type of task it is across all of them. So you'll notice the social foundations are all observational. That is not something that you would be able to assess on a paper pencil test. Mathematics are both selected response and performance, so it will be asking them to count or notice groups of numbers. Language and literacy is across, it's selected response, it's performance task, and it's also observation. especially for the speaking and listening piece. The physical well-being and motor development is all observational. So you'll see the total out of the entire assessment is 21 observational items.
I ask, how does this compare and contrast with the Gazelle learning assessments? Those have been around for 30, 40 years. And when I ran a parochial school, that was what we used to assess kindergarten students.
I have to be honest, I'm not familiar with that assessment, so I would not be able to compare the two.
Thank you.
So now what I'm going to show you is the benefit that I've had of being in districts who've piloted. So I got to work closely with a district. She's a literacy coach there. She was a former librarian, a former Title I teacher. Now she's a KRA trainer. So she sees things from many different lenses and works with teachers in a coaching manner right now. So these are her observations and mine of the KRA classroom level impact, building, and district. So she noticed that kindergarten and young fives teachers make professional observations as they meet their students each year, but with the KRA, they noticed that it provides a way for teachers to turn the observations into data. And before, teachers may have been making observations and just taking their own notes and thinking about it, but this is a more structured way to do that and to have data across the classroom and across the grade level and district in order to facilitate those conversations. The teachers use the observations to inform their instruction and determine the necessity to complete further diagnostic assessments. So it should inform the need for additional assessments. So it should also reduce redundant assessments or cut down on the number of assessments that we're administering. KRA data also provides information the teacher can bring to student study teams to get additional supports for a student. So especially looking at social foundations and physical and well-being, speech language pathologists, social workers, educational psychologists would be interested in the information as well. Since language and literacy is one of the domains on the KRA, this district found it easy to use the necessary data to complete their IRIPs in accordance with the Michigan third grade reading law. They took the score directly and linked it to the Michigan academic standards and used those two things to write goals for the children who needed the IRIP for third grade reading law. So looking at building level, again, gather observational data and talk about it with other providers in the district. The at-risk providers, so our title teachers, can use the data collected from KRA to form small groups. The grade levels can use the data to create needs-based groups across the grade level for another way of preparing students to read. So they also factored it into their reading level, their reading groups in the beginning of the year. The district level, the observations and assessment data can provide information for staffing and professional development needs across the district. So if uniformly, if you look at your kindergarten data across the district and you're noticing students, nearly all students are low in one area, that's an area that you need to address professional learning for teachers so they know how to address the students' needs. Again, the KRA language and literacy domain is aligned to the Michigan academic standards for kindergarten, and there's a link in there to show that crosswalk. For the future, this district is thinking about the essential instructional practices in early literacy. So if we look at essential instructional practices in early literacy, how can we link that to the KRA piece, and how might that bring up additional professional learning opportunities for teachers? And finally, and I found this one to be the most rewarding because this district has a preschool right in their own district, and it's actually in the same building as their kindergarten, but they don't really communicate a whole lot on students coming in or on their instruction. This gives them a reason, this data, to talk to each other about instruction, and a lot of the same children are coming from their preschool, of course, into their kindergarten. So this could open up some communication that has not been there before. A little bit about the pilot. I summarized some highlights here, but the full summary is in your folders. So out of 39 teachers responding, they were talking about the assessment itself. 79% rated excellent or very good or good experience with the administration of it. And I have to say this really counts on a a trained KRA trainer, someone who can really come in and support the teachers. It would be really difficult for a teacher to also be a trainer and train the staff. It worked really well in our case when the KRA trainer was an early literacy coach or another type of teacher leader who's in support of teacher instruction. 80% strongly agreed that skills and behaviors addressed were appropriate for kindergarten students. 50% plan to use KRA's results in their instructional planning and to communicate with families. And that's something that I, in my role, hope to grow there. 100% strongly agreed that students with disabilities and English language students were able to access the KRA. So they did feel that it was accessible, and there are universal allowances that the KRA has worked in to make it accessible to all students. So what it's showing us about kindergarten instruction, these were some ahas that I had looking at the teacher feedback. What it's telling us about kindergarten instruction and what it looks like right now. Some of the teacher handwritten feedback said, my kindergarten is academic. I have a hard time doing observational items. So I thought, what does that mean? What does academic kindergarten mean as opposed to play-based? So I want to dig deeper into that. What does our kindergarten look like right now? And what does academic mean to certain teachers if they're saying they cannot do an observational assessment? So it's interesting to see what our philosophy of kindergarten instruction might be right now. So we're seeing some information I think that I can use to help professional learning, to guide professional learning for kindergarten teachers. And these were just at the bottom, the ISDs who had some piloting districts. Just a glimpse here, again, the piloting ISDs with districts participating along the left. At the other end, percentage of children demonstrating readiness. The term demonstrating readiness is one of the levels on the KRA that I'll show you on the next slide. One of the levels of 3 on the KRA that would show you if a child is actually demonstrating readiness for kindergarten. So that's what the small pilot looks like right now. Here's a definition of those performance levels. So demonstrating readiness is the top level. The child demonstrates foundational skills and behaviors that prepare him or her for instruction based on kindergarten standards. The middle level would be approaching readiness. The child demonstrates some foundational skills and behaviors. And then, of course, the bottom one, the third level, is emerging readiness. So the child demonstrates minimal foundational skills that prepare him or her for instruction based on kindergarten standards. So to give you an example, on the language and literacy domain, there's an actual number score below 263 on the language and literacy, which would be the emerging readiness. So you get a score for each domain that would give you that performance level as well. So just a quick glimpse at the overall readiness of some of the piloting districts. So this is comparing GSRP students to other economically disadvantaged students. That's overall the 4 domains. Then there's 2 of the domains, language and literacy and social and emotional skills. And physical development and mathematics for the other 2 domains. So after being in the pilot, coordinating this project and working with teachers who've piloted, I see some opportunities here that for various things if we use the KRA. We can discuss child-friendly, developmentally appropriate kindergarten classrooms, like I mentioned. What does the term academic kindergarten mean? Informs instruction for kindergarten teachers. So they're putting their time into this in the beginning of the school year. They should absolutely get something out of it for themselves and to inform their instruction and to communicate with families. It informs the IRIP process for 3rd grade reading law, validates observation as a legitimate and important form of assessment. We have to look at the different types of assessment that's offered here, give validation to all of it, and teacher observations, one of them. And finally, it can create a communication point between preschool and kindergarten teachers that I don't feel has existed in the past. And in your folders, as well as the Maryland report, as Scott mentioned, they've done this ahead of us, so they have additional data on a larger scale to show some of the opportunities that have come out of KRA.
And you also have in the packet information from Newaygo County, RISA, where they've created a similar document for their county that looks like the Maryland document and does the comparison in terms of student performance within Newaygo County RESA. In conclusion, and then any other questions you have, this gets back to the core issue of a uniform kindergarten entry assessment. We were agnostic in terms of which tool as we went through the process, but very supportive of having a uniform tool so that we could actually go back to the legislature with a picture of how effective that investment is. And we continue to hear some rumblings of, well, we're not sure GSRP is effective, and maybe we shouldn't be putting our money there. I don't believe that's the case, but me not believing it doesn't mean that that's convincing to policymakers. When we approached Senator Hansen and asked for his support, we also had the support of Talent 2025 on the west side of the state. The business leaders on the west side said, we need to know what's the return on this investment? And we believe that having a uniform kindergarten readiness assessment makes sense. They also saw the Maryland report, and that was appealing to them because it paints with some degree of clarity the level of readiness as kids come into the kindergarten, and it allows then for improvements in preschool opportunities as well as informing instruction. The one thing that I would point out that's been interesting in Maryland, they initially did the administration on a census basis, so they observed all kindergarten kids. That can be used to inform instruction. They had some legislative pressure put on them, and so they modified the law and allowed for a sampling of the student population, which is why we have the sampling language in Michigan legislation as well. And a number of districts opted out of the census and did the sampling. Well, if you do a sampling, that really doesn't help the kindergarten teacher inform instruction for all his or her students because you've only sampled 35% of the kids in the classroom. Many of the Maryland districts now have gone back to census administration as a result of seeing that that was what provided useful information to inform instruction for the teachers. And so if you're going to do it, it made more sense to do it as a complete classroom and not just a random sampling of those in the classroom.
Richard? Can you give me an example of what an observation would be? I mean, I was hoping to see the actual tool, but, and I'm hoping that that can be provided, but what's an example of an observation that would inform the instruction? So can you say, this observation would mean that the teacher would do X?
If you go, I'll flip back to. So if we're looking at social foundations, so the observation piece, kindergarten should be play-based to be developmentally appropriate. So we're not talking about instruction with kids in rows and lecture like you might in chunks in later years.
Right.
But if you're looking at how students interact with each other, can they be in a group together? How are they forming relationships?
Okay, but look, I want to get this real, so Billy did X. What is X? And therefore the teacher will do Y. So can you fill in the X and Y?
So is he following rules?
Or Billy didn't follow the rules, so therefore the teacher will do what?
So that's going to change how she interacts with Billy.
What would she do?
Yeah, that's going to change how she interacts with Billy. So maybe he doesn't respond to verbal directions. Maybe she needs to go and have proximity with him. Maybe she needs to be closer to him.
Okay.
Maybe he needs another adult in the room. Maybe he's bonded with a certain child, so she pairs him with that child.
Okay. And then this is entered into some kind of a database. Does this follow Billy? So the third grader will know that Billy, back when you were in kindergarten, you've been obnoxious ever since you were in kindergarten, and so it probably, I mean, is that?
So the tool probably wouldn't use the term obnoxious, but I am hoping that it would follow. So I do hope that along with other assessments would paint the picture of the whole child, and it would follow him through his academic career.
Okay.
I have a number of questions. I'm hoping they come out. Do parents play any role in such an assessment?
During the administration or after?
Just in any overall kindergarten readiness assessment, in terms of like what their experiences are with their child and.
So there should be communication beforehand, of course. So there's information that goes home before. And I know the schools who piloted did work the information to Kindergarten Roundup. So informing them that they were a piloting school, and here's what the test looks like, here's what the domains are. And then afterward, there's a personal report for each child that goes home, showing, and it's user-friendly in the sense that it shows the information in graphs. So here's how your child scored in social foundations, in math and literacy and physical well-being. Here's what it means. And then here are some things that you can work on at home in these 4 domains. So let's get a 2-page report that goes home in November, usually, after the whole assessment is wrapped up and all the data's in. And teachers who piloted, many of them use that during the parent-teacher conferences.
So then my other thought process in terms of thinking critically about what a KRA means and the assumptions that we make from it, if we use this as a legitimate, if people say this is what we should do, what are the reasons that kids are not ready for kindergarten? Have we thought of those? And so I guess for me, I would break it down into perhaps there are kids that need extra differentiated supports later on. And that is something we would find out whether we did a KRA or not, because they have learning disabilities or whatever the situation is. I do wonder if it's effective to put our money into jumping to finding that out, knowing that we're going to find it out anyways. Are we taking away from resources to really provide them those differentiated supports? Because I genuinely feel like it's really hard to get those. So are we really just, I wonder, why are kids not ready? And is it something that's really, I'm not meaning to demean your work, but I'm genuinely asking what is the best way to do that? Because it feels like those kids that are probably not ready for kindergarten are going to need extra supports.
Absolutely. So 2 things I would add is that hopefully we'd find out earlier with an assessment like this one. And no offense taken, since I didn't write the tool, I'm just coordinating it. But it is in the hopes that we'd find it earlier. But also it is gathering prior care experience. So we're trying to understand where the kids are coming from so you can help answer that question. If they're not ready when they come in, why not? What's the background of a child who comes not ready? So that's another parent piece that we ask for information. What preschool experience did your child have or not have? So we can add that into the rest of the data.
And if they're in GSRP or Head Start, and they were in Head Start since they were 3 and 4, does that make a difference, or does it show no difference in terms of readiness compared to kids in poverty or similarly situated that enter in kindergarten based on the kindergarten readiness assessment? So it does give us some information at the systems level to determine, are we investing in the right place? Maybe our investment should be put somewhere else. If GSRP is not working, and I'm not saying that it's not, then $250 million goes a long way to doing something. But knowing that is pretty important. And that's why I think the state made the commitment. We didn't make this commitment. The governor signed the Race to the Top Early Learning Challenge grant. The state signed off on a uniform kindergarten readiness assessment. We're trying to honor that commitment. But the state made the commitment and thought it was important back in 2013 when we secured the $51.7 million.
Michelle, good?
Yeah, so I wanted to just go back to the, so we met with some kindergarten teachers, and I understand and respect that you're fulfilling a need that's in this grant and an obligation that we have to do. But I'm just wondering, and even though I know teachers are great, I married one,
Thank you, Michelle.
Yeah, welcome. My dad was one, but they really said it was really overly burdensome to try to, have a room full of kids, trying to observe, and, this looks really scripted, like what they're supposed to do and how they're supposed to do it. And maybe there's leeway, it doesn't have to be exactly what's stated here, imagining doing for each child. So I'm just wondering, and I do think it's better than a paper and pencil. I do think it's good to look at the needs of each child. And, it would be great if we had smaller class sizes and a longer period of time to work with them. But there are other ways. I just think if there were ways to support the teacher in the classroom, just recognize that this is a problem. This amount of time putting this stuff in, it is a burden. And so given that it's a burden, especially if they have larger class sizes and, some really rambunctious kids, what can be done to support them? Can they have more adults in the beginning of the year while this is going on, make recommendations that would make it, would facilitate to make it easier. And I also, follow up on what Nikki was saying, I think not including parents' perspective on what their kids can and cannot do is missing a lot of really great information. And I know it's not part of this model, but it seems that the parents would know the best, and, you know, maybe biased a little bit, but they would have a lot of it, because maybe the kid's just having a bad day. Maybe something happened there, you know, at home, and they're just acting out, and that's going to be on some permanent record that's going to follow them. You know, so to sort of put things in perspective. So anyway, I do like the idea of giving a whole picture of what the child can do. Oh, also, I have one of my kids, he's younger, and we get these report cards that are, he's in a new school where they're using these emerging, and honestly, as a parent, it takes me like 2 hours to figure out what this is communicating. And maybe it's just a shift for me, because I'm used to the ABC 1, 2, 3 kind of thing. So I think I like the idea as a whole. I just think getting the feedback to make it really be workable for both the teachers and the parents, listening to them and having them be a real central voice and addressing the concerns that they bring up is, and the two that I said, like just the huge workload of it. And I believe they have to do it at the end again, right? Because you have to do, okay, so maybe she was, all right, so she was saying she had to do it more than one time.
Teaching Strategies Gold was used multiple times, but
Okay, so maybe not this one, so this
time.
might be actually less
Yes.
work. But, you know, to recommend that these kindergarten teachers be given extra support.
Well, and there has, I know that some districts in the original pilot did use GSRP parapros to assist in the classroom.
Right.
Our challenge is to make sure that we meet the reliable and validity standards
Right.
of the KRA, but there has been some attempt to figure out how do we take some of that burden off the teacher? Is there a way to provide some support during this assessment window? And
Well, or she could be, or he could be doing the assessment while the parapro or another co-teacher,
Right.
you know, is doing other things with the kids, focusing on you know.
And as this rolls out, there is a small allowance available to each district that would allow them to have another adult come in to assist with this. Other adults can be trained to help, especially with the observational piece. And this assessment is actually shorter than the TS Gold that some teachers did pilot. So I know that was a shift in understanding the different tools too. So this is shorter by quite a few items.
there were districts that refused to participate in this pilot after a bad experience with
Yeah.
TS Gold.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
And so
I
again,
see.
we're
Yeah.
still on a voluntary basis
Yeah.
until fall of 2018, where the statute requires every district to participate.
I just have a question. Michelle alluded to the class size, that's crucial in any school. How big are the classrooms?
It varied. It really varied.
But what's the top and what's the bottom?
20 is probably the smallest, from what I'm thinking, just remembering from the pilot, and 28 was probably the top. So it did vary, and it varies from year to year, from district to district, from classroom to classroom. That is something that I noticed a lot of fluctuation in just across the districts that we've worked with on this so far.
Vicki, did you have?
I'm just thinking too, it just sort of popping in and out of my head. So if all children are unique and they grow at a different rate, it does concern me a little bit to say that there's such a thing as kindergarten readiness, because are we saying then that all children will be there at a certain age? Or would this tool then mean you might go to kindergarten at 7, or you might go to, you're saying it's informing instruction, but I also wonder if someday it's like, it doesn't matter what the parent, you know what I'm saying? Like it makes me nervous about the concept that there is a kindergarten readiness.
That's why the language changed, and it's the Michigan Kindergarten Entry Observation Tool. We were not comfortable with readiness. It's been bandied about since we started this conversation in 2009. We moved to kindergarten entry assessment in our state language, and then, you know, when the feds use certain language and then our partners use it, it's there. But from our perspective, ready or not, in Michigan, an age-eligible child can enroll in kindergarten. Our job is to be ready for the kids that enroll. So this tells us where they are. not whether or not they should be able to enroll. And so it informs our instruction. And I would go back to social foundations. The biggest complaint that we get from employers about kids coming out of our system is that they don't have the soft skills, that they're not ready for employment. Social foundations are the beginning of those soft skills that we need to nurture throughout the educational process. This is requiring us to focus on more than just the academic language and literacy and mathematics, and thinking about the whole child and his or her development in the educational process. But it is absolutely not intended to be a screener. If you don't show readiness, you shouldn't be here. But it may signal to the teacher, this group of students is going to need more support, and they may need more support outside of the classroom environment, right? Because kids grow up in an ecosystem, it's a community, and so it helps inform what kinds of supports kids may need.
I respect that response. I just do genuinely wonder, we've already legislated other tests in some respect, so.
Right. Yeah,
think it's
teacher
a genuine
evaluations
concern.
were used to be for help, and now they're used for
Yeah,
going after them. So this tool could end up being,
it's concerning.
who
Well, this
knows?
tool was designed, of course, not to be used for teacher evaluation, doesn't have that second test, so you don't look at it for growth purposes. It really is a point, at the beginning to tell us a specific snapshot on what was the level of readiness when they entered, what was their preschool experience like, whatever that was, because we track that data. How can we use that to improve what happens before they enroll in kindergarten, and how can teachers then use that data to improve their instruction? But it can't be used against the teachers in that regard,
Or the student.
Any other,
or the students, right?
I just have
okay.
to say that this pilot should be piloted throughout the state. All children should have this opportunity. Even my little 6-month-old grandson is in a nursery where they are, oh man, he's developing in so many different ways. And so, but that's an opportunity for my grandchild. A lot of children don't have that opportunity. So I'm glad that you have this program for students that do not have these other opportunities. And this kind of setting should be used throughout the state. If we truly are the top 10 in 10 and many other programs, we have to start at this level and cultivate socially and many other ways. So thank you so much for the presentation.
I'll simply observe that, assessments, tests give us knowledge. But how that knowledge is used brings out some of our distrust.
How the assessments are used. They're not just
Knowledge
used to
and
inform
certainly,
anymore.
Certainly. Now, a good example of some dangerous knowledge that you shared with us is Maryland's overall. They have demonstrated kindergarten readiness, and the highest readiness are by those preschool experiences that are private initiative. Childcare, non-public nursery, and family childcare. And the lowest performing, the lowest readiness are Head Start, Home Informal, and apparently the state's pre-K program. My question, are we really going to go where the data takes us? This data suggests that public control of the preschool years is not the most effective way of preparing students for school.
Which page are you looking at?
I'm looking at the Maryland one at the bottom
The
left.
single
Yeah.
page? Yeah,
Yep.
just making sure if there's the full report of the other one.
Yeah.
The question that I would have there that I would want us to look at, because I think that's a fair question, and we really should be prepared to use the data to inform investment decisions in terms of public policy. But typically speaking, in private preschool environments, there are families that are more affluent that can afford to send their kids. So you already have an economic indicator of likely success because they're in families that can afford the private preschool. And so I would not say that the data is telling us that the public-funded programs aren't successful. It's just that the kids that are in those private programs are already coming from families that are otherwise advantaged. And so we would expect, given that poverty tends to be a consistent predictor of academic success, we would expect to see that difference in the data.
I need to add to that because a lot of our private preschools would be co-ops where families help, and it's very integrative and collaborative, and it doesn't cost the kind of money that you're probably referring to. So even if we used a co-op model or something of that nature, we'd probably get much farther along. I don't want to jump to the idea that private is always affluent, because many parents are working hard to make that happen. So I don't necessarily think that's really accurate of a statement.
The other issue involved arises from a study I read a couple years back on alternative medicine. And one of the situations they described was growth. And by a given age, 80% of boys have reached their adult growth. That means that the 20% that haven't reached it yet become the market for miracle cures and growth medicines and things like that. And of course, the people that do buy their boys do attain their growth within the year, which is what we expected, but they attribute that growth to the intervention rather than to the natural course of growth and distribution. That's my concern as we look at child intervention programs. Kids grow, they learn on their own schedule, and the fact that we have added an intervention at public expense does not prove that their subsequent improvement is due to that cause. And that's the assumption that I see behind a lot of the call for investment in early education.
But I think if you look at the data with respect to those that have no intervention, so kids in poverty who have no intervention, because kids from more affluent families, I can't remember if it's 90%, but I think that was the number, send their kids to preschool. So 90% of affluent families are sending their children to preschool experiences, part day or full day, but they're doing it. So then your kids in poverty whose family can't afford that don't have that experience, and we can absolutely track the gap in performance when they start in kindergarten that persist over time. And we've been able to show that those students who have had a GSRP experience close the gap. Does it eliminate it completely? Does it do it for every individual child? No, but does it make a difference compared to having no intervention at all? Absolutely.
We have 25 years of Head Start experience, which would seem to contradict.
Head Start versus GSRP. So I think there is a question. There's a difference in approach with respect to the two.
Very good.
Is there a model, a co-op model that we can bring into communities all across the state that really encourages parental family involvement into introducing education?
That would be wonderful. Looking at Ann Arbor area where there are lots of co-ops, the children who go there still come from two-parent households where one works full-time and the other doesn't have to work, and therefore can be involved in the co-op. So that would be the best world for the family to be involved. But I don't know if we'd still be targeting the right population who needs the preschool simply because of the families they're coming from. A parent has to work, or both parents have to work if there's two parents involved. Yeah.
Hard work.
It is. I didn't even opt for a co-op. I have two young children, and
Yeah.
I couldn't keep up with the co-op because I work.
I just wonder if there's a community-based model that offers that.
Any further questions? Thank you so much for your presentation.
Thank you for the
Thank you.
opportunity.
The next item on the Committee of the Whole agenda is presentation on Partnership District Model Update. This is an opportunity for one of our partnership districts to provide an overview of their partnership agreement goals and the partnerships they have developed to help them accomplish those goals. Next steps is we will continue to provide monthly updates on the partnership district model and highlight continued success in partnership goals. Our presenters are Vanessa Kiesler, Deputy Superintendent of Educator, Student, and School Supports, Dr. Diedrich Martin, the School Reform Officer and Director of Partnership and District Office, Mrs. Renee Garcia, Superintendent of Muskegon Heights Public School Academy, and Dr. Tracy Peasley, the liaison with the Michigan Department of Education. Thank you for coming today.
Thank you for having us, and I also want to introduce Amy Henry. She is also going to be joining us for this presentation.
I didn't
Thank
catch
you,
the last name?
Henry.
Thank you.
Thank you to the Board of Education for allowing us to present and more importantly, showcase some of the wonderful things that we're seeing with one of our partnership districts. So a couple weeks ago, or at a couple of board meetings ago, it was asked, might we have an opportunity to hear from some of our districts who are early adopters, if you will, of the partnership model and process. And so we have a few districts who are certainly doing some things and experiencing some success. And so we invited one of those two districts here with us. And with that being said, I'm going to turn it over to the district superintendent, which is Ms. Renee Garcia. And she will walk through some of the points of pride as well as some of the challenges that they face as they embark on this partnership journey. And she wanted to share a story, and we're just here.
Thank you for having us here. I am so proud to share the Muskegon Heights story of the partnership agreement. And I must start by recognizing Superintendent Whiston's leadership and his advocacy. His belief in the Muskegon Heights community has just been instrumental, and my condolences go out to his family, friends, and colleagues. Amy Henry is here from the Muskegon ISD, and she has been along every step of the way with Muskegon Heights, so I wanted to recognize that and appreciate it. There's a lot of great work happening in Muskegon Heights, and I have a short amount of time, so I'm going to do my best to share the highlights. I hope that we're able to give you a taste today of what we're doing and get you intrigued to ask more questions. So I'm going to start with a little history. So this process began about 2 years ago, and it began with a strategic plan. So the community began to develop a strategic plan. Over 170 community members joined together in that process and worked over a period of 9 months. Dr. Teasley came on board in the late fall of that year and helped finish up the strategic plan. And come that February, we found out that it was necessary that we develop a partnership agreement, and the timing was really perfect. So the goals that we developed as a community were rigorous learning, Tiger Pride, leadership, community partnerships, and systems. So again, we just felt really lucky because we were well set and ready to roll with this plan. So what do the goals look like in action? One of the goal areas that we've spent the most time this first year on is rigorous learning. Rigorous learning, what happens in the classroom between the student and the teacher is going to be where the action is. That's what's going to help propel us forward. So we wanted to make sure that we were providing the proper supports for our students. We purchased a research-based scope and sequenced K-12 curriculum in both reading and math. And that for us was really critical because our students deserve the best. They deserve to have what's out there and what's well known to be effective. And they also deserve to have all the materials and resources that they need. So what that might look like in the classroom is it might be letter tiles to help form words. It might be classroom libraries. We brought a classroom library for every one of our elementary classrooms. Math manipulatives. We want to be able to help develop that concrete conceptual knowledge. So that was critical to us. We also want to make sure that we're supporting our teachers, right? They're the ones that are going to be making all of this happen. So supporting them with resources and professional development. We want our teachers to be able to study and hone their craft instead of having to go out and seek new resources or seek new lessons or materials. We want to be able to provide that for them. They deserve that. We also want to be able to provide them feedback. So we invested in some coaches, and in fact, we were pleased that we received, as part of our 21H grant funding, was money to supplement 2 of those coaches. And that's been very helpful. So we thank the Michigan Department of Education for that. What we know is when we put these supports in place and the practices and the systems in place, that the sum is going to be successful students.
So this graph is one that was done in research previously, so this is not Muskegon Heights data that we're showing you with this graph. I will preface that with saying last week we were meeting with their teams, and this same data was apparent with their math data. So this data is around reading trajectories, and what we know about instruction is that when students receive high-quality instruction, we can see that green line where they're making adequate progress and they're staying on target to meet benchmarks. What happens when they're at risk and we don't intervene and provide those high-quality instructional pieces is we see that trajectory of the 10%, the red line, stays low and the gap widens. So when we were looking at this with their math data just last week, it was instant urgency for these teachers. So when we talk about this idea of looking at the partnership agreement and how it originally identified grades 7 through 12, Ms. Garcia being the crazy, amazing leader that she is, I'm going to put it out there just bluntly, she said we are doing this K-12. It cannot just be 7-12 because we know in order to be efficient and effective, we have to address that gap at the youngest grades possible. So we can't wait until they're in 7th grade for that to fall off and the gap to be so wide that it's ineffective and inefficient to close it. So that's part of the reason that the partnership agreement went K-12. We know that there's no time to wait and that this is urgent work. So that's part of why this data was included.
So our staff is critical in this. They have understood that the partnership agreement means that we have to move forward with urgency. And I want to just give you an example of some data from our kindergartners this year. So this is a representation of 20, if we took our data and spread it across a 25 student classroom in kindergarten, all right? So this was fall of 2017. And the assessment here is identifying initial sounds of words. So initial sounds of words helps us predict future proficiency in reading. We know proficiency in reading is going to be measured on the M-STEP. We need to make gains on the M-STEP. So we have to focus on this skill so we can get our students to proficient reading. So the data when we started this year out of kindergarten was 51% of our students came in at risk for reading failure. We got to do something about that. So what we did was we took that curriculum that we purchased and we focused everything we had on that, being particularly aware of initial sounds. And then we gave that assessment again in the winter of 2018. And here is our data from that. So we had 23% of our students at risk for reading failure. Over that span of time, we reduced the at-risk by about 50%, a little bit more than 50%. So this for us is important because it's a first indicator that we're moving in the right direction.
So again, we get back to this idea of addressing kindergarten. It is so important that we intervene as early as possible. There's so much research to point to when we intervene early, we can reap the benefit later. So specifically, there's research on there around 3rd grade reading. So when we see 3rd graders struggling in their classroom, 75% of those 3rd graders continued to struggle in 9th grade, which is a big deal when we start thinking about 3rd grade reading law and all of the ramifications that come from not being able to read when you get beyond that. Additionally, there's research that would suggest that in kindergarten, as early as kindergarten, when we see a student struggling to read, we can predict future problem behaviors in 5th grade. We know that human beings, when we are faced with something that's difficult and something that seems kind of like an insurmountable task, we try to avoid it. I don't know many people in my life that say, that's really difficult for me, let's do it some more. They usually are trying to avoid it. So we can see that students, behavior is a symptom. Right? So if we continue to look at behavior as a symptom, we know that when their behaviors start acting up like that, we can trace it back, and reading has been one of those predictors.
So what does that look like at our secondary level then, right? We had to take a look at our high school indicators of content reading. There's not a ton of research out there yet on adolescent reading, but we do know the principles that come in at the early elementary reading. So what we did was we teamed up with the dynamic measurement group, who are the writers of the DIBELS test, which is one of the approved screeners from MDE, and we are piloting with them this new assessment. And so we took the assessment in November, and here's the data that we got. It is frankly painful to look at, 7% benchmark. That's not good enough. And it hurts, but it's real. And it's accurate. It accurately reflects where we are with our SAT data as well. So at that point, we had some discussions about just the urgentness and the relentlessness with which we need to pursue this. we came up with some interventions, some ideas, and we talked with our teachers and our staff and said, do we do this now, end of November, early December, or do we hold off and maybe start second semester, right? Because that's a natural transition, second semester. Well, look at the data. Can we hold off? We can't. So we realigned our budget. We bought some new interventions. We bought some more books for our kids, and we put that piece in place. And I am very proud of the success that we had. It's not yet enough, but this is the progress that we saw. We now have 21% of our students in our 9th through 12th grade at benchmark. So we've tripled that benchmark. I want to introduce you to Isis. This is Isis. So she is not necessarily, wouldn't label herself as a reader prior to this, but I walked into the hall a few weeks ago and saw her disengaged in this book. And thank you to the Coalition for Community Development, who is one of our partners, who went out and sought donations to be able to purchase this set of books. This was a book that she was very intrigued in. And when we can do this for our students, when we can empower them and help them find the joy and the love of reading, then we can do anything. Thank you. Nope.
No, this one.
Thank you. I've got lots of notes. I apologize. So, Tiger Pride and leadership are two more of our goal areas that we're working in. And it's an area that we found success, but sometimes we find success first because we find our struggle, right? We find some data that we don't like. So one of the problems that we have is with our students passing classes, in particular at a secondary level, they tend to disengage. So we took a look at the data, and 56% of our 9th through 12th graders passed all of their classes for the first semester of this year. Not good enough, right? What we also know is that when our students don't pass a class, it's very difficult for them to come back and overcome that. In fact, in the first 5 years of the academy, only 5 credits were recovered over that period of time. So we knew we needed to go at that. We needed to get back to that motivation and that getting our students to buy into that piece. And when we went back to our original strategic plan, one of the ideas that came out of the community was to redesign the senior year and to tie students into that, into the motivation of what they were doing. So a group of us sat down together and said, how are we going to go at this? We came up with some ideas. We knew it was going to take more time and more energy, and there's not a surplus of either one of those going around, right? We're working really fast and really hard, but again, I just got to give a ton of credit to our partners and our staff, because we know that it's not yet what Muskegon Heights students deserve. So we decided to go after this. The plan that we developed was a program called Exploratories, and what we did was we said we're going to end the semester 2 weeks early. And if you have passed all of your classes, you get to participate in this exploratory program. And what that looked like was we gave some classes of choice. We surveyed our staff and said, if you could teach anything, what do you want to teach? And we had all sorts of ideas, from poetry to yoga to graffiti art. Yes, we had African American literature studies. And then we let the kids choose which classes they wanted to be in. And then we also designed some field trips, because the other thing that our strategic plan, our community came up with, is we need to give our students more exposure. They need to be exposed both within the Muskegon County and outside of the Muskegon County. So we scheduled some field trips, and we were very purposeful in what those looked like. We wanted college visits. We wanted some things that were career-oriented, some service learning. We also wanted some fun. We got to take our kids out to see a 3D movie. We took them to camp for a day. Most of them had not had that experience, so it was a great experience. So going into that, the only way you had these opportunities was if you passed all your classes. So while this was happening, at the same time, we're running credit recovery. All right. Now, the results of this, we were thrilled with. 14 students recovered 15 credits over an 8-day period. Go back to that 5 credits recovered in the first 5 years. Now, I want to be clear here that this is a Plato program. It's research-based. It's a great credit recovery program. The students went in and they took a pretest on a course they were just taking, all right? And they demonstrated what knowledge they had. The program's able to identify where their gaps are, and then they go through units of study within that program, and then they take a post-test. So they still have to demonstrate the knowledge. They have to, make sure that they've learned the material and that they can demonstrate that. But we're really thrilled with that progress.
What kind
Yes.
of program is that?
It's called Play-Doh. It's an online program. So what comes next for us is this June, we're doing exploratories again. And always fixing
know,
me,
I'm
thank you. So we're running it again, but what we did was we changed it up a little bit. We went out, we want to make sure that we have student voice in the programs that we do. And so we went and asked our students, what do they want to learn about? And so they, this time we're going to have drama, we're going to have dance, and then we're taking a few different field trips. They wanted to go to a bigger university. So for us, it's a little bit tough because it's June and a lot of the big universities are closed at that point, but Eastern Michigan will be hosting us this time. And the other thing I think that's super exciting about that is the way that we get to pull in partners. So our Boys and Girls Club is part of teaching these classes. Our alumni, in fact, in June, we will have our first alumni from the 2018 class, because she will have just graduated, coming back and volunteering to teach dance with the rest of the students. So we're excited about that.
So, now that I got to get myself in order, the biggest piece of success that I can speak to, having been a part of this team, first of all, it's an honor to work with Ms. Garcia. She's a very passionate leader. I've told her multiple times that if she goes anywhere, I'm following her. She's infectious. It is a very, I shouldn't say that with my boss in the room. She's just passionate, and she stands for the right thing, and she works for kids. So I'll put that out there. I think the strength of this really has a lot to do with her passion. The biggest success we've seen has been in building those systems. So you can see just from this slide the 5 different areas that have really been focused in on around systems. We know that the intensity and the pace at which this work is going right now is not particularly sustainable or scalable right now. We need to make sure that we put things in place that will sustain this over time. So we're moving at a very fast rate in order to meet these 18 and 36-month benchmarks. However, with intentionality behind building a system that can sustain over time. There are a few partners that have been just instrumental in this. MyBlissey's been at the table for every single district acceleration network meeting, as has the MyExcel Blueprint representative. They've been at the table. We've had Systems of Care joining us at the table to talk about wraparound supports and whole child supports. We've had the Boys and Girls Club providing so much for our students. I say our, I do it all the time. I know. Muskegon Community College is really partnering to try and make sure that they're providing more for the kids as well. It's been amazing. It's amazing to be a part of this work. So this next piece here, this is really a visual that's used oftentimes with positive behavioral interventions and supports, which is a framework for addressing those non-academic needs for students. So while it's specific to that work, this is generalizable. So we can take this and we can generalize it to any area within our system. So we know that we need to have systems, data, and practices. I laugh a little bit thinking about the top 10 and 10 and how much this looks like it, because it really is looking at the same types of things that you're talking about with top 10 and 10. So when we have systems in place, we are supporting our staff to support the work that's happening in the classrooms. When we have practices and those evidence-based practices in place, we're supporting students in making gains. And then when we have a data system in place, we're really supporting making intentional decisions that are going to make a difference. So we're not just saying, hey, that sounds good, the neighboring district's doing it. We're saying, nope, this is what the data says we need, and this is how we can address it. And that's when we realize those outcomes. And for students, we're really talking about that social competence and that academic achievement. So that's why this graphic is just really powerful. We want to take it and use it to create those sustainable and scalable systems that we can keep going with over time. So this is a graph of actual data of work that's been done within Muskegon Heights. This is the district capacity assessment, which was developed at a national center that supports the implementation of practices, doing them the right way. So you can see the dip in July of 2017, the first dip looking at their system to say what's our capacity to support the work. It was at 30%, so that dark black circle in the center represents a total score. And then there are 3 other scores that they're given based on subsets of the total. So there's leadership, competency, and organizational environments. So in July of 2017, they were at a 30%. I've worked across the state. I got lucky enough to work here at the State Department, and I supported ISDs. I've supported districts across the state, and I have never once in my time seen growth that was this great in this short amount of time. So I want to put that out there as well. In January of this year, which is only a short 5 months away, 6 months away, we gained from 30 to 70% on our total score, which to me is absolutely unheard of with the work that I've done elsewhere. So it's a testament to the work and the urgency that's been put behind this. So, sorry, go ahead.
My interruption, but I'm just, I'm not quite sure I understand what the dots represent.
Oh, sure, yes, I'm sorry. So the dots are on the bottom there is the key. So leadership is your light blue, and then you'll have kind of a medium shaded blue, which actually is underneath the black one. So you can't see it, but it's underneath the black one because they're in the same spot. And that stands for competency. And really this gets at some of the implementation science work around what we need to have in place. That bottom dot on the July 2017 is organizational environment.
I can read the chart, but what does competency represent? How is
Oh,
that,
sure,
how is
yeah.
that measured?
Yeah, so competency is, so the assessment's pretty long. I mean, it's probably, I think it's 26 questions. And so,
hours.
yeah, it takes 2 hours to go through it with a full district team. So really when we talk about competency according to implementation science, we're looking at the selection of staff to do the work. We're looking at training and we're looking at coaching. Those are the three main cogs that they look at when they're looking at competency.
Thank you, that
Yeah,
helps-
yeah, no
helps me get
problem.
a picture of the rest.
Yeah, no problem. So you can see those dark circles are showing the total overall score and the growth that the district had. Yes, yeah, I'll put it on this one. So this graph is another one that's just a point of pride, I think, for the district, because when you look at this, again, we're seeing those 4 areas. So we've got the total score, then leadership, then organization, and then competency. And then the S's are standing for the state median, which means that the district is above state median for 3 of those 4 areas, 1 being the total score, which is just a huge testament to the work at the district level. Implementation science is really clear that it takes 2 to 4 years to do something well, just to get to the point where we're doing it well. So we have to do it right and we have to do it well. In order to realize student outcomes, we have to get to the point where we're doing it well. So we're saying it takes 2 to 4 years to get to the point where we're doing it well, and then student outcomes come. And we know we don't have time for that. We have 18-month and 20 and 36-month benchmarks we have to meet, and we have kids that are standing in our classrooms right now. So that's a huge testament to the work here. And our goal is to make sure that these students walk out K-12 with what they need to succeed outside of the building.
So continuing on successes, I just want to share that I think the partnership agreement has been a success for Muskegon Heights. It has heightened, we had the strategic plan, but it really heightened our urgency and our focus and our the resources that we've been able to receive. There are many partners in the room that I'm going to introduce at the end here, but that and the ability to reach out to anyone at MDE and them to say, we want you to be successful and we're here for you, we'll do whatever you can, has been huge for us and ultimately for our students. Another reason that it's been a success for us is because it gives hope and stability to our community. So being able to say we have a 3-year contract and we have a plan and we're on track, if not ahead of schedule, in implementing this plan is huge. It lowers the anxiety in the community. If you think about our seniors, our senior class that's about to graduate, they were in 6th grade when the original district closed. And every year since then, they've been told once, if not twice, that the district wouldn't be there any longer. Each time that happened, we lost students and we lost staff, and we had to restart, right? So being able to have this partnership agreement and having those supports, it really helps everyone. It helps our students, our alumni, our elected board, our academy board. The city of Muskegon Heights benefits from this. So there's some reality here too, right? We still have challenges. Despite all of these successes, they are real and they can be intense. The top bullet there is that 50% of our staff turned over last school year in the 16-17 school year. That's tough. It's tough on our kids, and it's tough to find certified staff. I know you had a presentation earlier today kind of talking about those different routes, and one of the pieces that we benefit from in the partnerships is that we work with Davenport University for an alternate route to certification. So we're working on that. We're seeing some progress, but that is still a major challenge for us. Another challenge is honestly just the fact that it's changed. and that it takes time, as Amy mentioned, 2 to 4 years from the implementation. I've got some little add-ins there. It's not only time, but it's guts, and it's grit, and it's stick-to-itness and passion, because it's not comfortable, and it's not always convenient, but it's critical. And if we ever have a moment that we doubt that, all you got to do is walk through our halls, because we got amazing kids, amazing, and they deserve more than what we are yet able to provide. The last challenge I just want to mention is absenteeism. I know that's a challenge throughout the state. It's definitely one of ours. We continue to work on it. We're doing some piloting interventions right now and seeing some success with that. Have a plan to kick off a full informational, educational program with our entire community in the fall. But it was something that we will continue to work on. Each of these challenges have not gone unnoticed, and they have not gone unaddressed. All of our partners continue to support us and brainstorm those. A few final thoughts that I have for you is that we fully realize this is just the beginning, but we do have a solid plan, and it's been created by our community, and we feel good about where we're going. We're fortified by some of the successes or those early indicators that we are seeing, and we're committed to maintaining the urgency. We truly appreciate the supports that we get and the problem solving and the ability to solve challenges. We know, again, that our kids are worth it, that this work is urgent. It is literally life or death work that we do every day, and we don't forget that. So with that, I just wanted to say thank you. We have several partners in the room that came all the way from Muskegon Heights, so I want to recognize them. We have Trinell Scott, the president of the elected board, Mimi Rankin, who's a Muskegon Heights board trustee, John Lewis, assistant superintendent with Muskegon Heights, Steve Goodman, the director of My Blissey. We have Mayor Kim Sims from Muskegon Heights. I also know that we have Dakota Crow, the CEO of the Boys and Girls Club from the Muskegon Lakeshore here, John Severson, the superintendent from Muskegon ISD. Did I tell you right? Like all of the support, it's amazing. Trinette Lottie Harps from the Muskegon Community College, a dean, Victoria Russman from WZZM here to support, Megan Doolin from Systems of Care, Health West, and
Social studies teachers in the back.
Oh,
Outside.
I can't.
She's outside.
Oh, Miss Van Heidsma. I didn't know Miss Van Heidsma was here. Miss Van Heidsma, one of our teachers. And my husband. So I want to thank him for coming too. That's great.
Ah, that's wonderful. I want to give you a big hand. That's great support.
The many supporters you've come certainly shows that you have a lot of community support and people believe in you, and that speaks volumes. Thank you so much. Okay, board members' questions. Tom?
Is there any way to gauge what the parents think about this? I mean, do you have a third-party outside survey or anything that would say before this and after they're,
We continue to engage our community. We had a We Rise celebration. I think one of the things that tells us how well we're doing that is the number of people that come out and participate in the events that we have.
Okay.
One of the next pieces to come on our partnership agreement is a parent university. So that will also be a piece of that because we need to support our parents and we'll be able to get more data.
So you're saying that without the partnership and the state saying that you needed to enter into this, a lot of this wouldn't have happened?
I'm saying it's brought an intensity and a focus.
Okay.
We had a plan. We had the strategic 5-year plan, but it's brought more resources into the community, and it's brought more publicity to what we're doing.
Okay.
There are a lot of people that believe in Muskegon Heights and are, have that tiger pride and want to come out and support that. It's just allowed us to move
And then finally,
faster.
to Dr. Martin, I'm sorry, but I know time is short. Dr. Martin and Vanessa, so when do they exit? I see all this, but I don't know, and I hate to say metrics, but I guess, when do you know that, is there
metrics
that they can go?
So it's a 3-year process from when you enter, and we look at your data at 18-month and also at a 36-month process. Also, we do have kind of a quarterly check-in. So Vanessa was able to, or Dr. Kiesler was able to go out at the 9-month mark. And so at that point, we really, all the way through, they really kind of present their data and they present their successes and their challenges. But at the 18-month mark, we really start to look at what was your plan? What are the things that you said you were going to have in place? And first, we want to see the systems that you have in place, because that's very critical. And then we also want to look at the data that you have. So they can present their data at the 9, 18, 27, or 36 mark, but at the 18 and 36 is more of the critical points. And if the data is at or very close to where we set as our goal, then we make a decision from the Department of Education if that district is released from the partnership agreement.
And like Superintendent Garcia said, to just put a point on this, it is a 3-year agreement. It's a 3-year stability. So if they're doing great at 18 months, that's great. We're going to keep doing great together. But we're in it together for 3 years.
Thanks, Dr. Kiesler.
I guess, and I'm sorry, I missed your titles. If you all could all tell me which entity you're with and.
I'm the superintendent at Muskegon Heights.
I am a school improvement and MTSS consultant with Muskegon Area ISD.
Dr. Teasley, Partnership District Liaison with MDE.
So I guess I would just like to say, I was going to say this right at the end of the presentation, but I had to compose myself. I think when Renee went through who the partners are, this is really what Brian wanted. When he thought about the partnership agreement, he thought about all these partners in the room. So we appreciate Muskegon Heights being here to honor his vision and to honor the work together today.
I had a question for Ms. Henry. You used the term a couple times, implementation science. Is that a copyrighted term or a?
No, there's research around it. So one of the partners that actually MDE is working right now is State Implementation and Scale-Up of Evidence-Based Practices, really long acronym, SISIP. And they have been a partner. So it's the National Implementation Research Network. And they have a lot of research around implementation science and the science behind what it looks like to implement something the right way.
That kind of the same thing as like it takes 6 months to develop a new habit type of
Yeah,
thing in your own life.
similar, very, yeah. That 21 days, yeah, it's learning. So it's really getting at the idea of there are stages, there are drivers, and as we go through this process, if we're cognizant and we're aware of those things, we can really do things with intentionality and make it more sustainable and scalable.
So we talked about this before, because I gave you the example of how we've used it with some parent engagement before we've implemented something. We look at it and we use it.
Yes, hexagon.
And we look at the different, we look at it for the fit, we look at it for relevance, we look at it whether or not it's easy to implement if there's a need for it. So there's ways to measure those different factors.
Thank you. Other board questions, comments? Yes, Michelle.
It just sort of reaffirms the position that we took. So this is wonderful to hear. Your enthusiasm is infectious. Thanks to the MDE folks who are working and supporting you. And I just feel very hopeful, and I feel that this is the right thing, that we've done the right thing.
Right.
It's Eileen. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Good. Sorry, I heard Cassandra get off. I just want to echo what Michelle said. I think I was the one who said, how much of this is process still and how much of this is actual moving forward. And this is really exciting news. And I think the people who are doing this hard work and also the staff for bringing it to us, very heartening.
Right. We will dismiss the folks from Muskegon Heights and take just a minute before we go into our next item. Okay.
I like that. You know, we develop all these models.
You know,
Wouldn't it be great to see like a model of what it would look like? Maybe, and even just a rough draft, and then it looks a little bit different for each teacher and each school, but this is what it would look like.
So schools have like half days set up, right? Or full days even. There's full days. I mean, there's a certain number of days that are allocated for professional development for schools, right? Not necessarily like on a consistent basis. I think sometimes the struggle is like what gets done with that time, because it's not always worthwhile. And I don't know what like your professional development looks like.
You don't have days. You just
You have to.
you work
Right.
60+ hour weeks. And it's
So,
just
we have like a couple of days in the summer before the school year starts, and then there's usually a couple of days throughout the year. But, being really intentional about what that looks like. And I always talk about like an arc of professional development, so that there's like a connectedness between the things that you're doing. It's not just like, here's this thing this day, here's this thing, here's this thing. It's like all underneath this umbrella of like this trajectory that you have as a teacher.
I asked,
But that's
do we
not,
have any word?
often that's not how it actually plays out.
So teachers, okay, then I would ask a couple questions based on professional development for nurses and LCs. Do teachers feel like there is truly an actual opportunity to reach professional development? Or do they feel like they don't have time to do energy, or it doesn't meet what they actually need?
Both of those. So either there's too many demands.
Yeah,
So
no,
I don't feel like I have time to do it. And then the other thing is, teachers have had a lot of professional development experiences that were not positive, that were not beneficial for them, right? And so you get like this sort of sour taste about it in your mouth about professional development in general, right? I mean, when you say professional development, teachers, they usually sort of cringe up about it.
Yeah, we do. We call it the blitz. You're supposed to just blaze on through and.
But the reality is depending on what it is, there are some very highly valuable professional development experiences.
Yeah.
So,
Eileen
how
and
do you
Cassandra are
connect
both
teachers
on.
with those?
Okay.
That's the question.
Under the circumstances.
Well, absolutely.
Interesting.
Yeah, generally, just PD. Like, I've stopped using the word. I don't say PD anymore to teach. Say professional learning.
Running late.
To give it a different
Yep.
flavor.
Yeah, it needs one.
Well,
I'm just
we'll
wondering,
eventually get
because
done.
again, you've got these types of
Huh?
things. I
We'll
just
eventually
wonder,
get
like,
done.
if there's a way to really, moving forward of it all by being honest about the factors that are involved.
Yeah.
in-
So the biggest things that I've found is that when teachers have choice and what they get to learn
You like
about,
where you're living,
and
how's
when
the
teachers
gym
are
going?
led by
Oh,
teachers,
yes.
those are the two biggest factors.
Although my
that
wife
really
just texted me that she killed a wasp inside the house.
Teacher
so
choice and teacher
She's
led.
she's not happy about that.
Well, it probably came in while she
You know, a
was
lot of
hauling
times
in
we don't,
groceries
that's not what
or
we get. We get one
something.
size fits
Going to
all
get the
from an
mail.
expert. And
Think something's not.
No, we're out in the woods. I mean, we got woods behind us, and it's beautiful.
so there
We
is
love it,
more
but
like
there's a
job
downside.
embedded professional development that's starting
spiders,
where we
you
do
gotta
like
spray.
classroom observations.
We're figuring
I
it all
like
out.
take groups of teachers through classroom observations, and there's like a protocol for discussion.
No, we
before
haven't had
afterwards
that
about
issue.
it.
Do you remember?
And,
Do you remember Melanie?
And some of those
Okay.
are really
I don't.
building it into your workday. That's like one thing that I think has potential.
Yeah. Just depending on, I mean, because like,
Yeah, I recognized her too.
Right.
And when you
No.
saw it,
When I heard her name,
I was
you
like,
can't come to work.
Yeah. She has a lot of respect.
Hold on. So, I mean,
Yeah, she
as
does.
long as, again,
It's good
as
when
long as
candidates
the
come to
factors
board
involved
meetings.
are satisfied
Yeah.
and people are capable of accessing.
I'm trying
I
to get her
think that's
to,
how
but
it
no,
is.
I don't know. Probably not.
Yeah. But it takes time. It takes consistent quality professional development for that to go away.
There'll be somebody.
Right,
but-
right.
Is
Then maybe you're
Melanie
excited.
just
You
here?
Right.
Get there.
What's she interested
And
in?
I mean, depending on the professional
A particular
development.
thing or just
When
checking
I have
in?
ones that are great,
Okay.
when I go meet with the other state teachers
Know
of
if
the
there
year,
was something on
I've
the
done a
agenda
couple of
she was
events.
interested in, or?
Very much look forward to that because I
She
know it's going to
watches
be
from
high level.
the streaming
Yeah.
You know that I'm going to grow. That it's going to add value to me.
Yep.
Yeah.
how was your trip?
It was amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really
Yeah, you know, I've heard
nice.
from others that have gone, they said it was just like this lifetime.
Super empowering, and I say that it nourished my soul.
need a minute of
To be around other
celebration on a
people,
day like
other
today.
educators that are as passionate as I am, is inspiring. makes me excited about the work that I do. You know?
Yeah, how special teachers are.
Yeah.
You know.
It was. It was.
I gave my
good. Felt
computer
good.
to Jennifer because
I'll
it's not
share a
loading.
few of the highlights. That's what I'm going to talk about today.
Your iPad?
Yeah, my iPad.
Quorum is here.
Oh, well, then I'm getting up.
All right.
When did you give it to
Send
her?
Sheila back.
Oh, okay. Thought, is it taking her this long to fix it? Did you give it to her this long?
Still stuck at
West
March
side wasn't so
something.
far away.
Oh,
from
well,
Yeah,
wait till it gets
Side's like a half
unstuck.
an hour away.
I'd like to have gone through some of them and
Maybe that was good timing. It kept you out of your iPad.
yeah.
I made myself
My phone's going dead.
Supposed to be resting.
Is that a bag full of miscellaneous,
Yeah.
That's stuff I keep in the office in case you need to plug something in at the meeting.
Looks like my last school's lost and found.
I don't know if it's, if there's an iPhone one. An iPhone thing?
Should be. Is there one?
We did have.
I think I might have one in my purse.
Here's one. Well, you mean
Oh, you
just
got
just that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is
It's
that
in
yours
mine.
too?
Oh, not my
No,
personal
that's
one.
his.
This is my personal one?
No,
No.
no, but it's your,
State.
Send a deputy superintendent.
Well, I'll let her borrow it.
Yeah. Yeah, right.
that probably is, there's a
One of
light
those.
cord in there. There might be one in there, but.
Panic when you get less than 10%.
Yeah, it might be on the phone. You want me to go look for Pam? I think she might be back.
Yeah.
I think she's on the phone back.
Oh, okay, please, thank you.
Always doing a million things at once. Oh.
I'm just kidding.
Actually, I didn't see Pam.
I think she went down.
Lupe's coming. Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I should be more conscious of work.
We have a quorum present.
Look at my
Yeah, if
grandbaby.
we need, yeah, if we're gonna approve minutes, I
My
think.
beautiful-
You
some of
should
my
do what the
beautiful
chair wants to
grandbabies.
do.
We move on to approval of State Board of Education minutes for the regular Committee of the Whole meeting of April 10th, 2018. We will entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Support.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any nay?
Aye.
Okay, they are adopted. Now, the report of the co-presidents. And I will simply note the great loss that we have faced, and we look forward to arrangements so that we may show proper respect to the family of this great public servant, Brian Whiston.
Cassandra's on.
Is Cassandra on the line?
Yeah, I just want to echo those comments. Today's obviously been a very rough day, and Brian was a wonderful leader, and he will be greatly missed.
Thank you, thank you. All right. I understand the report of the superintendent items are listed on the agenda.
You good?
Is she gonna give any report, or does she want to give anything?
Human Resources Report, report of teacher certification revocation decision, report on approved changes to the Ionia Intermediate School District Plan. Deputy Superintendent Sheila Alice, do you have any comments on these for us, or anything to share?
Just to echo your kind words today, as well as Co-President Ulrich, in our loss of our amazing leader and person who has been guiding and steering the MDE team for almost 3 years. His passing has created an ache in our heart, and a loss that we're still coming to grips with at MDE, but we are a very strong and resilient team at MDE, and we will go forth and continue to move forward with his vision, his direction, and his love of public education and doing what is best for the students of the state of Michigan. That's how he based his decisions, and we will continue to go forward with that. And there's a great team at MDE to make that happen.
Very good. Right. Next is report of the Michigan Teacher of the Year, Luke Wilcox, the 2017-18 Michigan Teacher of the Year. Is a math teacher at East Kentwood High School in Kentwood Public Schools in the greater Grand Rapids area. We are ready for your report.
Excellent. Well, thank you and good afternoon to everyone. I'm here to report back about my week spent in Washington, D.C. Just got back Sunday. It was an amazing, incredible experience with some wonderful people. You will see a picture here of the other 54 State Teachers of the Year, all of which are deeply passionate about education, and I say that my soul was nourished by these people. And so I'm just going to try and give you a quick overview of some of the highlights of what we did during Washington Week. And there are a lot of photos. I think I've given you a small sample of maybe the 600 photos that I took this week. So here goes. First thing that we did at the beginning of the week was we got a chance to visit the Department of Education in Washington, D.C. Former Michigan Teacher of the Year, Melody Arabu, was the one that welcomed us there, as she has a fellowship and she's working at the department for 1 year. And we did, in fact, get a chance to speak with Secretary DeVos, and I'll share a little bit more of those details a little bit later in the presentation. I did get a chance to visit Capitol Hill, where I got the opportunity to speak with one of the staffers from Senator Debbie Stabenow's office. We spoke about funding for public schools, for opportunities for all students. We also spoke a lot about funding for teacher leadership, which is one of the big ideas that you've definitely heard me speak about throughout this year. We got the amazing opportunity to go into the White House, where you'll see a photo there of me standing inside the White House. President Trump addressed the 55 State Teachers of the Year and also recognized the 2018 National Teacher of the Year, Mandy Manning, who is from Washington State. That was quite an opportunity. We did also get a chance to visit the Vice President's residence, where we had some brunch. You'll see the second lady there, who was in fact an elementary school teacher in a previous life, and she spoke to us about some of the challenges and some of the wonderful elements of being a public school teacher. They did have a fancy dinner for us. This is a picture of me with my wife, which I think is the first time that we've been dressed up that fancy since we went to senior prom together years ago. But it was really a wonderful evening where they honored all of the State Teachers of the Year. So the message that I'd like to bring today is I want to talk a little bit about this meeting that we had with Secretary DeVos. And you may have read something about this in the media over the last week. There were quite a few articles that were posted by several different media outlets. And depending on which article you read, you could make your decisions about how contentious the discussion was. And so I'm going to bring to you my perspective on how this conversation went, and then also share I did get an opportunity to speak, and I'm going to share the story that I shared with Secretary DeVos. So first thing that I'd like to put out there is that I certainly appreciated the opportunity to speak with Secretary DeVos, and I appreciated her willingness to be able to sit down and listen to the State Teachers of the Year. So she did not make this an opportunity for her to speak to us. She actually said, I'm going to come here, I'm going to sit down, we're going to set up a round table with some chairs, and I would just like to listen to what the State Teachers of the Year have to say. And so I appreciated that she was willing to listen to what the teachers had to say. So we had about a half hour with her, and not every teacher got to speak, but there were several teachers that got to talk about the current state of education in their own homes, in their own states. And so a lot of the ideas that got presented were sort of based on their experiences and their understanding of what was going on in schools in their states. And about halfway through the conversation, John Hazel, who is the State Teacher of the Year from Oklahoma, shared some thinking about what was going on in Oklahoma. And if you followed the news, you know that Oklahoma teachers are struggling right now. Education is struggling in Oklahoma. And so John brought out the idea of school choice, which we know is one of the current initiatives of Secretary DeVos. And John shared his ideas about how school choice is hurting some of the students in the state of Oklahoma. And you know, at this point, the anxiety went up a little bit in the room because we were talking about ideas that we knew there was some disagreement about. But this is part of what needs to happen, is that we're able to sit down and have conversations about things that we disagree on. And John was very respectful, Secretary DeVos was very respectful, and they did have some back and forth. And then there were several other teachers that got an opportunity to speak. And at the very end of the meeting, I did get an opportunity to speak. And so I'd like to just share the story that I shared with Secretary DeVos. And this story comes from a classroom that I visited earlier this year, and I'm not going to name the school or the teacher, but it was an algebra teacher. And he had noticed that a lot of his students were struggling in algebra, a very typical thing that happens. And this teacher really, really wanted the success of all of his students, like genuinely wanted every student to be successful, and decided, look, I'm going to do something, I'm going to provide some opportunities for my students so that we can get every student to be successful. And so he set up three things. He set up after-school tutoring, where he was going to be available after school to work one-on-one or work in small groups with students. He set up tutoring at lunch, where he was going to be available all through his lunch to be able to help students that wanted additional help in algebra. And then he also got a hold of a tutor list that he provided all the students in his class, where you could actually get a tutor for a small fee that would work with students one-on-one. And so he's very excited about this, implemented these new sort of strategies, and was a little bit disappointed that there weren't very many students that were taking advantage of these opportunities that he had provided for the students. And he got to the end of the semester, and I had a meeting with him at the end of the semester, and he's looking at his grades and was disappointed that there were quite a few students that didn't make it, that had failed the algebra course. And you know, I asked him about it, and he said, look, I provided these students all of these choices. They've had choices on how they could help move their education forward, and these students just didn't make the right choices. They didn't choose these things that I had provided this opportunity for them. And I challenged him a little bit, and I said, let's think about this, the students that did show up for these opportunities and those students that didn't show up. You know, what trends do you notice? And gave him some time to think about it. And he said, well, look, the kids that showed up consistently were the kids who had very involved parents. They were the parents that were emailing me. They you know, a lot of them had two parents at home. They had some sort of transportation after school so that their parents were picking them up. And the kids that weren't showing up tended to be the kids that maybe came from broken families. They're free and reduced lunch kids. He actually found out that a lot of the reason why the kids weren't coming at lunch is because they were free and reduced lunch, and they had to get in the lunch line to get their lunches. And also found that those kids didn't have transportation after school, and so they had to take their bus after school. They didn't have the opportunity to actually come in after school. And so upon reflecting, we realized that that these choices that the teacher was providing, it wasn't really a choice for some of the students. There were barriers that were in the way that those students didn't actually have the choice to come in for those after school help things or the lunch things or the tutoring sessions. And you know, obviously you can see the parallel that I'm trying to draw here about school choice. And I'm very proud to be from East Kentwood High School, which is a large, very diverse public high school. And I'm very proud of the fact that we provide opportunities for all different types of students from different backgrounds, from different socioeconomic. And I would make the argument that we need to continue to fund these public schools where all students have real access to high-quality teachers and high-quality programs, because when we say school choice, that doesn't really mean a real choice for some of the families that we serve. And Secretary DeVos was very receptive, very respectful. I felt like I had represented the teachers and the students that I in this role I represent in the state of Michigan, and I hope to continue to have that conversation, and I'm excited that people are willing to sit down and have that conversation. Thanks.
Now we move to the discussion action items, and the first item on today's discussion action agenda is the appointment of interim superintendent of public instruction. As you've heard at the beginning of this meeting, we are deeply saddened that Superintendent of Public Instruction Brian Whiston has passed away. And this leads to a vacancy, and we need to identify someone to take the responsibility for the department. I make the motion that the State Board of Education appoint Chief Deputy Superintendent Sheila Alice as interim superintendent of public instruction, effective May 8th, 2018. Their support?
Support.
Can we vote through the phone?
Yeah.
Yes, support.
Can we have discussion?
Certainly.
That way I understand.
What are our options?
You need to be physically present.
I support. I support.
Okay, all right.
Oh,
Making that a-
Michelle.
But you have to be physically present to have a quorum, but you can vote through the phone.
You know, just double
Yeah,
support.
right. Okay. But no, what are our options? So is it like a permanent interim versus acting, or what are the options right now?
The
Because
interim-
this got on here.
Right. The interim serves at the pleasure of the board, so if the board at a subsequent meeting should decide to name someone else as interim superintendent, the board could do so. We are forbidden by statute to contract a
Permanent, 6 months
Permanent,
before the general election, right? So,
6 months prior to the election, 2 months afterwards, so that decision will ultimately be made by the board taking office in
so
January.
we could make this decision in 2 weeks or 4 weeks or something as well. That's an option as well.
I think that's a possibility, but I think it is desirable to name someone that we are holding responsible for the department until then.
There's no voting on when to start the bidding process, correct? We will. Process, is there a date thereafter from an interim superintendent that the bidding process starts?
Bidding.
Like going for a permanent superintendent? Yes.
We can begin that process. I think we probably need to let the MDE recover. But we can begin discussing this on our June agenda. It would be beneficial to at least review the process we did last time, and I fully expect by the time by December of next year that we'll have a timeline for the incoming Board of Education. That's just speculation on my part.
Timeline before we take the next step, but I don't know if that's.
That may emerge, it could emerge.
I would like us to read the legal decision that we're making. I want to make sure that we're doing the legal step that we need to be taking right now. So I want that in writing, and if you would read that information to us, I would really appreciate that.
I understand that the department has sought advice from the Attorney General's office, and do we have that material at hand?
Which legal, are you talking about voting or just that we?
The acting versus interim. Just what is our responsibility today? What is what is our responsibility that we have to meet today? I guess I can add the legal responsibility.
I'm looking for the legal document that I gave each of the board members.
Yes,
During the
you
break.
did.
There we go.
I have it.
Have it?
Do you want to read that?
No, I'm asking the chair.
This is the legislation, and then we have the information from the General's office.
Okay. I guess the legislation itself, the revised school code, an excerpt from Act 451 of 1976, on the removal of person as superintendent of public instruction, settlement prohibited, limitations. If a person employed by the state as superintendent of public instruction is removed from that position, the state board or another state agency shall not enter into a settlement agreement concerning that removal unless the agreement is in settlement of a lawsuit filed against the state. It seems that this applies in the removal and not a vacancy.
Part that I think applies to what we're doing.
But it's under removal of superintendent, so it would seem that part 3 would apply to the removal.
There's semicolons, limitations, settlement.
The only thing I should have read was the part 3?
Yes.
Okay. All right. The state board shall not offer a contract for a person to be employed by the state as superintendent of public instruction or extend the contract of a superintendent of public instruction within 6 months before a general election at which state board members are elected, or within 2 months after a general election at which state board members are elected. The state board shall not offer a contract for employment of a superintendent of public instruction in excess of 3 years and shall not extend a contract in increments of more than 1 year. This subsection does not prohibit the state board from employing an interim superintendent of public instruction at any time there is a vacancy. All right, so that's the statute. The advice we received from Tim Haynes in the Attorney General's office. Under Michigan law, the chief deputy acts for and exercises the power of the superintendent of public instruction during his absence or disability. Thus, there is no requirement or need for the State Board of Education to act or appoint an acting or interim superintendent of public instruction in the event of the superintendent of public instruction's absence or disability. On the other hand, if there is a vacancy in the position of superintendent of public instruction, the State Board of Education must appoint a person to fill the vacancy. The State Board of Education may appoint an interim superintendent if necessary.
Or we may.
See the statute which we just read regarding removal, grant of leave limitations on contracts and extensions and interim superintendents during vacancy.
Wondering if the interpretation is must fill it, and it could be an interim. So it's giving us the option of doing a permanent or an interim, but no.
Well, the word permanent isn't used, but
we can't. The preceding language that we read said if it's in 6 months of an election, you couldn't. But
yes.
I don't know when it says may appoint, that means vacant.
Well, it's interesting. It says the State Board must appoint a person to fill the vacancy. The State Board of Education may appoint an interim superintendent if necessary. So the two...
Yeah, it's necessary because we can't appoint a permanent.
Okay, but my question was, what is the legal responsibility? Do we have to fill the vacancy with an interim superintendent? What do they mean by filling the vacancy? Can we fill the vacancy with an acting what we have now, and then it says may appoint an interim superintendent? So I don't understand the difference.
I believe the difference is that while the office holder was alive, the acting acted in his place, but now that he is deceased,
we may appoint.
But it says we must fill a vacancy.
But then it says you may.
Right, so we may do it we may do that if it's necessary, and I'm saying it is necessary because we can't put someone in permanently because it's less than 6 months before an election.
Yes.
I would agree with Michelle. It's Eileen. I think it's important to recognize that there are documents that have to go back and forth between federal and state agencies at all points, and that there needs to be somebody in a legal position to sign them. So with an acting superintendent with an alive superintendent who is incapacitated, that worked, and now we unfortunately have lost Brian, and we need someone to act for us in that capacity until we are able to hire someone permanently, or you folks will be, because I don't think I'll be on the board.
Okay.
This is Cassandra. I completely agree with that as well. I think that we need to do this, and I also think it would be unfair for someone to be acting in that role without the necessary authority to do so, or any potential contractual issues that may arise as well.
I have a question.
Lupe?
Okay, so right now, Sheila is acting, right? Sheila, you're acting. Now, what was occurring?
Actually, I think not. I think
just filling it.
she is
She's
chief
really-
deputy superintendent.
All right, so, okay.
There's no one for her to act for.
All right, okay. So what was happening now with documents and other things that need to be authorized? Were they suspended because Brian was not here, or were they taken care of?
I will be happy to answer that. Because Brian was still in the role of superintendent, he was still signing documents until he went on long-term disability, which was on Thursday, and then documents have not been signed by him since then.
So who signed them?
We are sitting on them, waiting for them to be signed.
I talked to the AG, actually to Tim and his boss, I'm going to say, it was yesterday. And they indicated that, I believe that there would have to be a contract that we're voting on as well. So I mean, I don't know that we can appoint.
That was my next question.
I don't know that we can appoint an interim without knowing what that contract is going to be. So that's one thing that I'm just not exactly sure, unless you're going to say his contract goes straight to the interim. But I don't think we would do that. So I don't know that we can actually enter into a contract right now, which means
Well,
I'm
I
not sure
don't-
we can make it.
Eileen again.
What?
Sorry.
I mean, I wish that.
Eileen again.
Oh, go ahead.
It presumes that Sheila's salary would be raised to Brian's because she is contracted already. She works for us.
But he had indicated that you're going to have a contract, and so I didn't know what was going to transpire over that day yesterday, but we were just talking about things, and he said, well, if you're going to have an interim, you're going to have a contract. And so I'm not sure that we can do this today without a contract before us.
That was going to be my next question. So if we make that appointment today, where is the contract? What does it look like? What are we voting for? See, that's a critical part too.
And maybe if we had, I wish we could get the Attorney General's office on the phone or something to know if we can actually do this.
I'm sure you could have earlier, and you could still do it now.
Yeah, I believe
I
at the
don't-
very least you can vote for a resolution for the state to enter into this contract. But the absence of a contract, I don't think prevents us from moving forward with the board identifying and voting on an interim superintendent.
I think in my mind, I have to know what I'm voting for. The title, only the title, or the whole package? The title and the contract that goes with the interim.
Well, if the board were to appoint, adopt this resolution, Deputy Superintendent Isles would have the responsibility with no pay raise. So subsequently, we would have to act to adjust remuneration if that's, unless there are civil service regulations that govern this already.
So we don't know. We have to get a lot of things answered.
Well, I really feel strongly about what Cassandra said. I think it's unfair to you. Sign documents or honestly to be compensated for the job, you know. So my tendency is to, I would vote to support the appointment of the interim now. I don't know if, I mean, if, and take, you know, with what Cassandra said, we can vote that we, you know, we want to do this and contracted. So I just think delaying this is unfair to you.
Would it be subject to an agreement that we would vote? Because I would assume we'd have to vote on the contract in 2 weeks at our retreat or something. I would assume that we can't just, whatever, you know, Sheila and somebody else decides that this is what the contract's going to be. I mean, that just doesn't sound like the
So
right.
we could look at the details of the contract at the retreat.
But I mean, I would assume that we could also say we don't like, I mean, you know, it's not a fait accompli if we don't have it in front of us.
So are you suggesting to have,
I mean,
Wait till the-
we appoint her subject to the contract, approval of the contract in 2 weeks? But I don't know that she would then not have that position today,
Well,
if that was the subject too. So I
I
don't,
guess I'd like to call the members' attention back to the language of the statute. The state board shall not offer a contract for a person to be employed by the state as superintendent of public instruction within 6 months before a general election.
well, an interim, we're not offering that, I think.
Yeah, my hand is up.
Yes. Okay.
And I agree with you, it's a lot of things are unfair and all of this kind of thing. My thing is, I need answers. I need concrete answers in order for me to feel very right about this vote. I don't want the public to come back and say, the board did not take care of this or this or this. I want to be very sure that what my vote, when I cast my vote, is the right thing, the right legal thing to do.
Let me
So
ask this.
can I make a suggestion? I mean, it's not like we're creating a contract from scratch. One exists, and we had a superintendent who had that contract. I don't think any of us are suggesting that we veer tremendously far from what already existed, and that we as a board have already approved. So really, the changes to the contract would be minimal. It would be recognizing a new person in the position and an interim basis, which we can always change, as well as the compensation regarding that position. But the rest of the contract, the stipulations within there, really shouldn't be up for major negotiation. It already exists. We've already done this.
Mhm.
We're not starting from scratch.
I don't know if
So
that's true or not.
I
don't
have-
know, I've never done this before. I don't know if that's true or not.
So how does the appointment of an interim and a contract impact the subsequent date of our new search is my thing. And anyhow, since we haven't discussed that, I don't.
Well, what happened when you appointed Brian? There probably wasn't a contract that he signed and the president signed that day, was there? Already prepared? Was it a point?
Right, that's true.
Oh, yeah,
So-
we had everything
No.
prepared.
No.
No, so I guess maybe it doesn't need to be right before since it wasn't then. Is that right? You-
Well, we don't
That's
know,
my
I don't know.
recollection.
Was he
That's-
applying
that's
for
a good
something he
question.
didn't know exactly what the contract would look like, or did he
They
say?
negotiated the salary, I think.
this is
Yeah, they
afterwards?
negotiated a contract
I
before.
believe so, and I would defer to Cassandra too,
Before.
who was there. Eileen, because you were there.
What?
So,
Good, Marty.
so I guess, it sounds like,
Still here when Brian was appointed.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And he continued that day?
Yeah.
He didn't,
There
I
was-
see.
There was no change in power on that day.
Okay.
When the board appointed Brian, Mike was still here.
okay. Then they were able to negotiate, okay.
so you say you need more time. My fear is I just don't want it to be like, come back another month, oh, I still am not ready. Come back
Right,
another
agreed.
month, I'm
No.
still, I'm not ready. So I would say, get the information, dig it up, find out what you need to know by
Our
the retreat. You know, so.
Well, I think I have asked all the questions already.
Yeah, it's Eileen.
Questions to make sure that.
I feel pretty strongly that we should do this today. Brian wanted Sheila to be in this position, and my issue is that Brian's death is demoralizing isn't the right word. We're not the ones who demoralized. There are too many people who cared about him besides us who are more important to him than we are. But this is not the moment to have uncertainty at the department. And I actually don't see a reason to have the uncertainty. If for some reason Sheila and the board part directions, we have a remedy for that. I just want to tell the world that the department is stable and that the state board is behind the department and that we are moving forward despite Brian's death.
And Ms. Cassandra, I agree completely with that.
If there's no other discussion, a vote would be in order. Is there
one other
desire for a roll call vote?
further discussion. Yeah, I would assume it would be roll call. I mean, this is one of the most important things we as a board do. I mean, this and this is not going to be for 2 months. It's going to be for at least 8 months, 9 months, 10 months, a year potentially. So, yeah, I mean, if the new board starts or restarts, we start, but then they say, no, we don't want that. We restart it. It could be a year. So, I mean, that would be my only reason. I am sure Sheila's one. I haven't had the opportunity to, and maybe I should have by now, but to really talk and get to know Sheila and understand who is going to be leading this department that I'm voted, one of the most important votes that I'll take. Likely would be that way, but I just feel that since this is the most important, but I'm probably in the minority and I am fully fine with you guys moving forward. Yeah.
Call to attention too that he has already described how the duties, there was already a plan in place. So I feel like, we could wait and just.
But I also think that we probably need
Yeah,
a
I
contract.
think
We
we
may
could
need a
just fine.
contract. I don't know that
Yeah.
what we'd be voting on actually.
Or we could we could have an interim for a smaller period of time. And that would give us time to reconsider
I don't know. if I wanna do
and
that.
be able to sign documents. And so so it wouldn't be a year. It could be.
I don't know that she'd want to do that, and I don't know what that.
Well, it just
I don't-
gives you more flexibility because you're brought up the concern that it could be a year. But if we ask to have it be, for whatever, the month, and then, when we've had more time to, then.
Well, then
we
you're
will
talking
make-
about an acting versus an interim, I think. I think we can appoint an acting for a period of time until we want to appoint
Can
an
she sign
interim.
documents as an acting?
Lupe,
They,
I
you know,
wanted to
Tim,
substitute the motion.
Tim mentioned acting superintendent as a potential, interim or acting.
what is your motion?
I want to substitute the motion to say that we would vote on an interim superintendent in 2 weeks during our retreat.
Is there support for the substitute motion?
Support.
Needs a majority to replace the motion.
Can I clarify, are we actually voting on an interim superintendent?
I wouldn't call it that, but it is a short term,
No.
very short term.
No, there'd be nobody until 2 weeks. She's just saying the
Remain
vote's going to
vacant.
happen in 2 weeks.
To remain vacant.
Oh, I misunderstood your
For 2
Yeah.
substitute
weeks.
motion. Okay,
We
so
would
your
decide
motion
in
is
2
that we
weeks.
make this decision in 2 weeks.
At the retreat.
The retreat.
All right, and that's,
So I want to ask a question.
I don't
I'm
think it's
presuming
debatable.
that the interim, so sorry.
Yeah, it is.
I'm presuming that the interim will come from within the department. What I want to do is to give a very clear signal, if that's the case, that we are not looking to do an interim search from outside the department. And I also want you to consider that if you're looking at the top staff at the department, then we're agonizing over key staff right now as possible substitutes for Sheila, and I think that's inappropriate.
That's not my intention. My intention is just to be very clear about the questions that everybody has asked and also be very clear about how an interim superintendent impacts the future search and moving forward. That's why I would do it. I would not do it for those reasons.
So should we have in that 2 weeks, a contract prepared?
Yeah.
And let me, I have not said anything yet, so I guess my issue is, to be honest, in considering who the interim should be, Brian made it very clear who he thought that person should be, and I will definitely lean to Brian's advising. I guess my concerns right now is, do we have can we make everyone feel comfortable that we are following the necessary procedures to get us there? So for me, it's not, it's a matter of, do we have all the answers? Do we have clarity?
We should have, after the motion and the second, we should have, and the reason for it, then we should have had a vote as to whether to consider. Let's do that now. All in favor of considering the substitute motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, considering the substitute, say aye. Aye.
Aye. Aye.
It sounds like we had, and I think we need probably need a roll call.
Do a roll call. What do you mean consider? It's just, do you adopt the substitute? That's the question, isn't it?
No, you have to vote to consider the substitute before, and then you have the discussion. We've had most of the discussion before considering.
Want me to call roll call?
Please call on whether to consider this substitute motion.
Bechtel? Yes. McMillan?
Yes.
Pugh?
Yes.
Ramos Montini?
Yes.
Snyder?
Yes.
Albridge?
No.
Weiser?
No.
Xyley?
No. So the motion carries. We continue discussing this substitute motion.
Call the question.
Question is called. Read the motion once more for us.
Substitute.
Vote on the interim president in 2 weeks at our retreat.
I guess, well, we called the question, but I had a question.
No, I'm sorry. I didn't mean call the question. I meant. No.
So, okay.
I withdraw.
So do you feel clear on the direction that we can go in as far as with an interim? Is that why you voted no to waiting 2 weeks? You don't feel like we need an opinion from the AG's office?
I think that our responsibility is not to leave the department rudderless for 2 weeks. And if we decide in 2 weeks another interim would be preferable, we have that power.
I just don't think that we have I think we have to have a contract before us. I'm not sure, but it seems to me that I don't. Yeah.
I don't think we're leaving them rudderless. They have a plan in place. I'm confident.
Can you say that that's not true what he's saying?
I don't accept it, no. The details of the contract are secondary to responsibility for the department and actions that it needs to take in the next 2 weeks. Right. We're clear on the motion then that we will make the decision on interim in 2 weeks at our next meeting. Call the roll.
Bechtel? McMillan?
Yes.
Pugh?
Wow. I'm going to say no.
Ramos Montini?
Yes.
Snyder?
Yes.
Albridge?
No.
Weiser?
No.
Xyley?
No.
5 noes. 5 noes.
Okay. So then the original motion returns for consideration. Is there further discussion on the original motion? Not, it would be appropriate to vote on the original motion.
Can you repeat the original motion, please?
The State Board of Education appoint Chief Deputy Superintendent Sheila Alice as interim superintendent of public instruction effective May 8th, 2018.
Would you amend that to say something about a contract? Like a contract would be drawn up, or no, you don't want? Sure, your motion.
You can, so we've, in my other life, we've done this before, where the board approves it pending a contract.
But that's what you said, right?
Subject to, but that means that she really have the authority at that point or until that pending is removed? That's what I'm wondering.
I think, as I mentioned, I think it's important for the department to have someone in charge, and the details I think we can work out later. And we can even change horses later if we want.
If not, if the AG says you didn't vote on a contract, it was not a vote or something. I mean, I guess they could, if we do something wrong, I guess then the vote is no.
I think it was Martin Luther who said, "Sin boldly," and.
So technically, I don't think we could enter into a contract unless the board has approved the person to begin with. I think it's a matter of the cart or the horse,
Okay.
which comes first. But personally, I think that the board has to make a decision before a contract can be entered into. That would be my perspective.
But see, we all have perspectives and we think and we this. And my only concern is we should really know. We should know and then vote. And that's the only thing that's causing me to be acting like I am, because we don't know. Nobody knows. Everybody assumes things. And we have to know. This is the most important vote we cast. This is.
And I agree with Richard. I think, just in all fairness, I understand it makes people feel uncomfortable, and maybe it's not, all the technicalities have been worked out, but I think that, sometimes you just have to feel uncomfortable, and right thing to do is to.
No, I think you're probably right. I think the motion should say who's going to enter into this negotiation with Sheila, and then bring it forward. And if there's not a meeting of the minds, that I guess this vote could be rescinded. If there's some weird reason, then it could just be rescinded. But I think you should probably say who's going to enter into these. Is it Cassandra and yourself to enter?
So when it came to Brian's contract, I believe both Richard and I were signatories on that contract. Is that your recollection too, Richard?
I'm a little unclear.
On me.
I know we signed the extension, so I'm assuming, we wouldn't have been co-presidents when he was first appointed, but I know I'm positive you and I have signed the extension.
Marilyn's telling me I signed it too, because I can't remember.
The initial
Yeah, you were the secretary.
Yeah,
Project.
no, I think you're right, yep.
You can get around.
So are we going to
Okay.
amend and put something about the contract in there? Maybe that's going to make us feel more comfortable. I respect the fact that Brian chose Sheila. I respect that. But it's just so many questions that we have. So maybe the language is a little bit different. But we really have a lot of concrete.
Well, I don't see formal actions being proposed, and the motion is on the floor.
And my no vote is only just because I'd like a couple extra weeks, and I'd like to figure out this contract. But I think that she'll be a wonderful interim, I would imagine, and I don't have any reason to doubt that. So I can respect the will of the majority in this case.
Yeah, because another
Debate?
thing for me too is that the team that is gonna move this department forward includes all of the people that have worked closely with Brian, Marty, and all the team. I wanna feel comfortable with that. That's who is gonna help Sheila move forward. That is important to me. All those components are important. So I don't know how we can word that in the motion.
Well, I think the members of the department are hanging on our every word right now, so I'm sure they will take that into account. And we do have the opportunity for comments from members following this, and I think we can maybe share some other thoughts that that may be important at this juncture as well.
I mean, and to Lupe's point, I'll just add this, and that is that is important. And again, Brian, the time that he was here with us did a tremendous job and did a lot of work, and so we have to respect that decision that he made. And I'm sure that we would have heard otherwise within that time that decision was made. I mean, this isn't the first time that we've heard this, but because Sheila, I mean, I'm fairly new in comparison to some of you, but Sheila is new as well, or newer, has a wealth of experience, and then we do lean to those staff persons who have been here and bring with them other assets as well.
No other comments?
Call the question.
Call the question, okay. Now, would you read the roll?
Pecto?
Yes.
McMillan?
No.
Pugh?
Yes.
Ramos Spontini?
Yes.
Snyder? Albrecht?
Yes.
Weiser?
Yes.
Xylee?
Yes.
6 yes.
Good. All right, well, please join us in keeping the Whiston family in your thoughts and prayers. And we look forward to information on when it's appropriate for us to share our respects with the family as well. Yes, you may.
First, let me say that I know that this has been a very difficult decision for me. We are in a very difficult time in uncharted waters. This is the first time that we have had to embark in a situation like this. And I want to let you know how appreciative I am of you putting your faith in me. Know that I am extremely humbled by this appointment, and know that I am completely dedicated to forward Brian's vision, his direction, and maintaining the momentum he has started in this department. And I am very fortunate to have the fabulous MDE family behind me to do this work. And I have an amazing team that I rely on regularly. And they have reached out to me and have said to me that they will support me in any way needed. And I know that I can depend and rely on all of you. I greatly appreciate the wonderful team that I have here. So thank you for that.
The next item on today's agenda is approval of nominations to the Special Education Advisory Committee. Each year, the State Board of Education is asked to approve nominations to the Special Education Advisory Committee, or SEAC. Terms of 5 members at large and organizational delegates and alternate vacancies need to be filled. The State Board of Education was asked to make nominations for the member at large vacancies at its April 10th, 2018 meeting. The list of nominees and supporting biographical information is included in the board item. Our next steps include appointment of nominees, which is being requested at today's board meeting. We have Shulan Dox, the interim deputy superintendent for P20 system and student transitions, and Terry Chapman, the director of the Office of Special Education. Wish to say anything before we take the motion?
Just wanted to thank you for your support and your nominations for the vacant large. Terry, did you have?
I appreciate very much the support of the board. I would extend to you an invitation to their. The new members will be coming in for a welcome.
The chair will entertain a motion.
Motion to approve nominations as presented to the Special Education Advisory Committee.
There's support?
I second. Or are you gonna tell us the names?
Quite a list of them?
Yeah, there's
I can.
they're all in our packet.
Oh, they're in our packet?
Yeah, and linked.
Packet.
Any other discussion or questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Next item on today's agenda is state and federal legislative update. Marty Ackley, Director of Public and Governmental Affairs, will provide an update on state and federal legislative issues.
Good afternoon. I know the hour is late, and there's a lot of legislation being discussed down the street. I'll try to keep this pretty quick. The budget, I'll start with the budget. The budget has passed the original houses and have gone over to the other house, and they sit on the floors there for consideration. There have been no conferees announced yet, so that process is still in the works. There was a section in the Senate bill that was problematic for us, especially given the fine presentation about the partnership districts earlier today, and that would greatly change the way some of the partnership model works here in Michigan. And so we are trying, it would say if the partnership district is not working, that the school district would have to appoint a governing board for that building. It would have to cease all the daily operations to that board. The board would appoint a director or a leader for that school. The collective bargaining agreements would be canceled. And so we are working very hard with the legislature to try to change that language in the final budget. There's another bill.
Marty,
Yes.
who proposed that?
That's in the Senate language.
Yeah, who proposed it?
I believe it was,
The appropriation bill.
yeah, it's the appropriate bill.
It's Hanson's bill,
Right.
okay.
Right. There's another bill that's going through the process now, which is Senate Bill 4614, which would, hold on, let me get there. Which would allow a person to get a 2-year extension on his or her provisional certificate, teaching certificate, if it lapses before he or she can complete the requirements for a professional certificate. This is language, what it does is it strikes out current law at our request, because in November of 2015, when the Ed evaluation bill was signed into law, so beginning this July, that legislation, that law requires that effective or highly effective ratings be before moving from a provisional to a professional certificate. Current law allows that an individual can receive a 2-year extension on a provisional certificate. The section of law also says that when an individual's 2-year extension expires, that they may not renew their provisional certificate. They must move to a professional certificate. We currently have educators in Michigan who have a 2-year extension that will not be able to move to a professional certificate for a number of reasons, be they on extended medical or maternity leave, or they could be teaching in a setting such as a child care center or private schools that they don't do Ed evals, or they currently are unemployed and seeking employment. So when these 2-year extensions expire, the educator will no longer be able to work as a teacher. So by striking the law, the current law would allow the individual to renew their provisional teaching certificate. A recent administrative rule change allows educators to have unlimited renewal of the provisional certificate, but it can only be enacted for these individuals if the law is struck because it specifically prohibits a 2-year extension holder from renewing the provisional certificate. So the striking out this law goes before the committee, went before the committee today and did get a hearing. It's a House bill that's now in the Senate, so it has passed the House. It's now in the Senate for consideration. We have, MDE has contacted every individual holding one of these provisional certificates in every school district employing an individual using one. We strongly support this legislation, and we, fingers crossed, that this bill will pass. There's also a...
I'm sorry, I have a question.
ahead.
So if somebody has a provisional certificate, does that mean they've completed the teacher certification process, or they've completed it, but they just...
I'll defer to Leah. Come on up, Leah.
So if you have a provisional, does that mean you only have to have half the credits taken, or do you have to have the complete certification at a provisional?
So provisional certificate in Michigan means that you have completed a full program. It's just the name of our first certificate, but that was actually changed recently in rule, and the provisional certificate is now called the standard certificate in Michigan to avoid just this point of confusion.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, all right. I just didn't want people like with half their education and not completing it. Like my daughter.
There's also a set of bills that we strongly support to provide for school safety. House Bill 5828 would create a school safety commission housed in the Department of State Police. The Department of Treasury would house the Comprehensive School Safety Plan Fund to provide and administer school grants. There's another bill, 5829. There's a whole group of bills that are aimed at providing safety for schools outside, and they don't address weapons in schools. It just provides for training and resources for schools to increase their safety precautions. The Marshall Plan, there was $100 million put into these into a House bill. Hold on, Senate Bill 941, $100 million. Come from the Talent Investment Fund, which would receive money through a transfer from the Higher Education Loan Authority. The purpose of the bill and its $100 million appropriation would be to improve Michigan's talent pool by training citizens for high-demand career fields, providing educational supports, and expanding career exploration opportunities, and supporting innovative teachers and curriculum. So there's not much detail in that bill yet, but it kind of earmarks $100 million for that portion of the Marshall Plan. There are also other bills making through that are in response to, they're being called the Nassar bills in response to the, how do I put this, the sexual predation of students. So these bills would amend sex education to include instruction on sexual assault, dating violence, and domestic violence, would require reporting of school districts, by school districts, to the state of occurrences. Yes?
Wasn't that always required under Title IX?
I think that,
Was.
no?
Actual occurrences where it was required to report it under Title IX.
It's required to report under the Clery Act, but that is something that you report online in your own institution, not necessarily to the state itself.
Okay. So how would that change?
I think
I guess I'm wondering how would things improve in our schools, higher ed, if it was already required? What are we doing differently?
Part of the requirement is to require school districts to report on teachers that move from district to district, and requires the school district to say why a teacher was let go.
Yeah, and that's part of an ongoing conversation.
I'm sorry, can I correct what I just said? The Clery Act applies to colleges and universities. I don't think it applies to school districts. someone can correct me if I'm wrong about that.
That is ongoing conversation that we're having with the bill sponsors. On one hand, we aren't obviously responsible for the hiring and firing of teachers, nor does that data necessarily get to our level, or should it. But then the intent of the legislation as of now is that a school district can't fire or have a teacher leave and be rehired elsewhere without the new employer being aware of what actually occurred. So those are ongoing conversations.
Kind of separate almost of a discussion than effective reporting of sexual assault.
Yeah, we can get you more detail on all
Okay.
these bills, so. And there was another bill that Lupe was interested in that was not discussed at the legislative committee meeting to establish English as the official state language. That's on the Senate floor right now. It's a House bill that's passed the House. It's now on the Senate floor for action. I'm not sure if Lupe would like to respond to this, whether.
Well, of course, I'm not in support of such a thing. We don't need divisive legislation in our state. And everybody understands that English is the first language. We don't need to make it official. My community and all people that speak another language other than English are very offended by. I don't understand why legislators come out with this kind of legislation because it's very, very divisive. In all countries, people speak more, 2, 3 languages, 4, 5, 6, and here we are only wanting to speak one language. I just don't understand that. And if you understand the anatomy of our body, there is a muscle in our body just for languages. So whoever created us knew that languages was going to be a means of communication between human beings, and we are designed to be able to articulate in other than only one. So I'm very offended by whomever thought of that bill because it just doesn't make any sense to me. Now, if you go to Grand Rapids, all the signs are in 2 languages because the first majority are Spanish-speaking people. And whether we want to or not, they are gonna be here and they're gonna stay here. They add a lot to our economy. If we remove them, I'm telling you, the United States is gonna close because we are everywhere working and doing things that people do not want to do. And so I think I'm gonna contact the legislators that thought about this nonsense so I can personally tell them how I feel about it. But, you know, I'm just totally disappointed at what legislators are dreaming about. It's just crazy.
Second that.
That's all I have.
Thank you very much. Nikki Snyder has requested that she step down as the board's delegate to the National Association of State Boards of Education. Lupe Ramos Montini, State Board of Education member and the NASB Central Area Director, is willing to serve as the board's NASB delegate. This is still true for both of you? All right, is there a motion then to name Lupe Ramos Montini as our board's NASB delegate?
So moved.
Support. And support. Any discussion?
I'll be happy to act in the 2 capacities.
Very good. Very good. All right, because you're a teacher and teachers can do more than one thing.
Absolutely. You know that's right, Richard.
You know, I've been a teacher too. All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay?
Aye.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Lupe, for your willingness to serve, and thank you, Nikki, for what you've invested in NASB thus far for us. All right, there is no consent agenda today, so now we are in our closing mode here with comments by the State Board of Education members. Are there any board members who wish to offer comments?
Well, can I
Okay.
start?
Yes.
It's been a difficult day. You know, all of us did well. But, you know, in our hearts, there's a void. In the head table, there's a void. When I went to eat, he said right next to me, we always said, and there was a void. But you know, his legacy is going to live forever. His friendship is going to live forever. Brian, if you knew him, he had many different sides to him. I happen to know him in the fun side. He did a lot of events in Grand Rapids. And I have to tell you, when I introduced him to the Grand Rapids area, I invited him to our scholarship gala. It was a black tie, and Brian was suited to the T. And one of the things that I, as the chairperson, does, I take him to the floor and we dance. And so I went to Brian and I said, Brian, it's time for our dance. And he said, okay. So I thought he was not going to do it, but he said, okay. So we went to the dance floor and started dancing, and Superintendent Flanagan was there, his wife, and many other people. And so I had told them, when we start dancing, all of you come and join us. So then that's how I introduced him to the Grand Rapids area. And so everybody, you know, I posted some pictures of, not dancing, but other pictures. And so everybody knew Brian in that area. So I will miss him. I will miss him a lot. But his friendship and his way of dealing with people and moving the department forward will be a legacy that only he could do. And he did start so many new things that are going to continue moving the department forward. So I was very lucky that he was part of my life.
Yeah, and I certainly am saddened by Brian's death, and I've known him since the early 90s when I was a city councilman in Auburn Hills, and he would come and when he was at the ISD and would do seminars on schools of choice or not schools of choice, but being able to go to neighboring districts. Yeah, schools of choice. But I've known him for a long time, and I'm certainly sad and offer my condolences to the family, and also Susan's passing. I am very saddened by that as well. And on another note, I am very much looking forward to working with Interim Superintendent Hollis.
I just, want to thank, just say that everyone's in my prayers, my thoughts, Brian's family, as well, his biological family, as well as his family here. In the short time that I knew Brian, Sheila, and you'll probably learn this, I would dial his number pretty late into the evening. But he always answered, and I was sharing with Michelle and Allison and Kyle that, I think, I don't know, maybe even last week I was texting or emailing and receiving responses from Brian, but his level of commitment is just something that rubs off, and I think that all of us can say with 100% assuredness that his work will continue. And I think that just his life and the way that he lived and just his calmness and the way that he responded to all of us in such a way that, and all of Michigan's children, it just compels us to do better and to make sure that we continue his legacy. And we've lost two giants and, in education, but we will make sure that their lives were not in vain.
On a positive note, it is Teacher Appreciation Week this week. And so I challenge you to think back to your educational experience and remember a teacher from your experience, and if you have a way of communicating with that teacher, reach out to them and tell them thank you.
Brian did, he read it.
I do want to say that over, since we last met, Alice Ann helped me to organize a meeting with some community members and to look at the dashboard. And what came out of that discussion is the need to visit some of our urban school districts and some of our struggling school districts and meet with some of those community members. And I know that we began those conversations with Brian at our last retreat. And so I just want to make sure that we're picking up on that, and Alice Ann, and I know that she's met with staff about that and had even talked to Brian about it. So we'll just pick up on that, and I'll get Michelle and Tom's help with that as well. So.
I guess I will share, I guess my dominant memory of Brian is meeting at one of his family funerals, and in the way that he has faced his own fatal illness these last 6 months. Real man of courage, a man of faith. Christians believe in this Easter season of Christ's resurrection from the dead is an element of hope. He embraced that hope, and in that hope I commend his family. It's been a real privilege to work with not only Brian, but with it is one of the great joys of serving on the State Board of Education is working with so many people in MDE and on the board, people who are at the top of their game. And it's a humbling experience, and Brian's example is certainly humbling for me personally and professionally, and really appreciate it. Right, our future meeting dates are listed on the agenda. We meet Tuesday, May 22nd for our retreat at the James Henry Center for Executive Development at Michigan State University.
It is an open meeting.
Beg pardon?
It is an open meeting.
Yes, it is an open meeting,
Yep.
but thank you for
Yep.
clarifying that. And I'm hoping someone will send directions between now and then.
Yes.
Oh, Google.
All
I'm
right.
sure you get directions.
Thank you. Let's see. Now I have a thing. If there are specific items the board would like to include on future meeting agendas, please let us know. We will be working in the next few weeks to finalize the agenda for the next month's meeting. And there are no other
Just
matters.
one last
Lupe,
thing.
yes.
Because the presentations today were powerful. From the morning, we heard powerful presentations from the morning till the end. And everybody that sat at that table, at the end of this table, you all did a marvelous job. We have a lot of questions, but that doesn't take away from the positive things that you said. We just need more information. So I thank you. I know the board thanks you.
Motion to adjourn?
Is there a second?
Second, third, fourth.
All in favor?
Support.
All right, we are adjourned.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.